Chapter 479. Kongjua couldn't help but widen his eyes. He even counted from top to bottom and from bottom to top several times. It was indeed the 9th floor. How is this possible? How is this possible? The 8th floor has only been opened for a short period of time. How is it possible for someone to rush to the 9th floor? Kongjua couldn't believe his eyes. He immediately led everyone to rush up. When they arrived at the entrance of the 9th floor, they saw a bunch of keys hanging on the door. Obviously, the 9th floor had already been opened. The 3 challenges of the 8th floor had all been cleared by someone. Who else has reached the 8th floor today? After breaking through a floor, the challenger's habit was to take the keys and directly walk to the floor to open the door. At the same time, it was also a form of reporting to let others know which floor he was on. If there was a problem, remember to come and save him. Kongjua asked, but the elders on duty shook their heads. Except for Li Zongjio, no one else has entered the Genius Tower from the outside. In the afternoon, the Genius Tower has been temporarily sealed. Kongjua woke up in a short period of time and immediately sealed the Genius Tower. Since then, no one had entered. Now, they had been guarding here for a long time, but they didn't see Li Zongjio appear. Therefore, they were puzzled. They were all guessing in their hearts. Although it was very unlikely, the person who entered the 9th floor was most likely Li Zongjio. Only Li Zongjio would act so unconventionally. Ling Yan's eyes were shining. Originally, he was still thinking about how to help Li Zongjio escape. Although Li Zongjio escaped most of the time, there was no need for Ling Yan to worry about him. However, this time, the person he provoked was more serious. It was not a matter that could be solved with fists and feet. Even Kongjua's identity had a certain influence in the Xingyan dynasty. It was because of this that Kongjua was so popular. With his identity and seniority, ordinary people naturally couldn't surpass him. But he never expected that. The moment Li Zongjio made a move, he directly solved the difficult problem of the Genius Tower's 8th level. This was equivalent to directly raising the level of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. If the remaining instructors could enter the Genius Tower to comprehend, they would definitely be able to raise their level by a lot in a short period of time. Comparatively speaking, the overall strength of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor would definitely be at a higher level. Li Zongjio had made such a great contribution to the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Perhaps this matter could be easily covered up. Although it could not be said that the merit did not make up for the fault, when the merit was too great, there was no way to blame him. Perhaps Li Zongjio himself did not realize the extent of this, but this would be a huge breakthrough for the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor. Impossible, I'll go take a look. It's definitely not that guy. Guisi immediately cried out in alarm. Then, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Guisi took the key and walked in. However, it only took a few minutes. The alarm of the Genius Tower rang directly. Then the door opened with a bang, and a figure was directly sent out. Bang! Guisi fell to the ground, foaming at the mouth. His eyes were unfocused. At this moment, the force he had to endure was clearly extremely terrifying. Guisi had wanted to rush in, but he was still thrown out in the end. Such an outcome was really shocking. Obviously, Guisi wanted to stay in there, but in the end he was directly sent out by the Genius Tower. No, with Guisi's level, there's no way he can stay on the 9th level. Seeing this, Kongjua also realized why Guisi would appear in this place. It was because Guisi's level was not high enough. If Guisi could take the initiative to withdraw, there wouldn't be such a scene now. Now that he was thrown out, and from the looks of it, it would be difficult for him to recover in this state without 10 days to half a month. Quickly carry him out. The pitiful Guisi was immediately carried out. The remaining people also gathered in front of the Genius Tower, watching the current situation. Everyone was shocked and amazed by the changes in the Genius Tower. Even Guisi could not stay on the 9th level for more than 5 minutes. Let alone the others. The experts on the alchemist ranking did not have a huge gap. Although it was very likely that the strength of the 2 people in front was stronger than Guisi, it was absolutely not overwhelming. Therefore, under similar circumstances, even they did not have the ability to deduce in the 9th level. This kid is really awesome. When Ling Yan saw this scene, he was extremely shocked in his heart. In his heart, he already knew that the monster who rushed to the 9th level must be Li Zongjio. Other than Li Zongjio, no one else had such strength. The Genius Tower could not be faked. Moreover, it was very difficult to continue hiding one's strength in the Genius Tower. In the Genius Tower, one would unknowingly display all of one's skills. Whether one was truly capable or not, one would know after entering the Genius Tower. Wait a moment. If one passes the 8th level, there will definitely be a reward. Something will definitely appear in the Genius Tower. The things that appear will be a great contribution to the alchemy world. Where are the rewards? Kongjua suddenly said. These things were extremely important. The reason why the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor had so many advanced techniques compared to the outside world was because of some of the documents that were rewarded by the Genius Tower. However, these things were usually brought out by the students. One could comprehend them by oneself and enjoy the privilege of comprehending them first. However, one must hand these things over to the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. After the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor studied them for 10 years, these things would then belong to them. After all, the Genius Tower was under the jurisdiction of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Therefore, this request was not too excessive. After all, the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor grew stronger, it would be extremely beneficial for them. However, Li Zongjio did not appear and no one was able to enter the 8th level. The only person who was able to enter, and perhaps had a chance to reach the end and retrieve the items, was directly thrown out because he had forcefully barged in. Until now, he was still in a state of unconsciousness. Damn it. He must have embezzled the documents. I must arbitrate and punish this kid. He covets the items of my Genius Tower and is selfish. We must get rid of this malignant tumor. Kongjua himself was furious, but very few people listened to him. He was a genius who had reached the 9th level. Even if Kongjua was of noble birth, he might not be able to punish him. When a person's achievements rose to a certain level, he was not someone that could be killed with just a few words. Chapter 480. Genius Tower. The mysterious person who had rushed into the 9th floor did not stop his footsteps. His feet continued to move forward. In a short period of half a month, he had directly stepped into the 10th floor. This matter had even alarmed Vice Dean Qidan. However, after Qidan inquired and found out that the person in the Genius Tower was Li Zongjio, he did not say much. He only instructed that the person's identity was not to be announced to the public for the time being. Although they were 99% sure that the person inside was Li Zongjio, they still had to be extremely cautious and not make any mistakes. At the same time, it was also a protective measure to prevent information about Li Zongjio's identity from being leaked. Otherwise, who knew how many people in the city would be staring at Li Zongjio? Even a strand of Li Zongjio's hair could be auctioned off. In Monarch City, almost everyone was a group of greedy people. Once they found out that Li Zongjio had some value, they would definitely flock to Li Zongjio and squeeze him dry. It was not easy for such a good seedling to appear. How could they let Li Zongjio be destroyed by these people? However, everyone had heard about the mysterious man's adventures in the Genius Tower. Most of the people were discussing how far the mysterious man could go in the Genius Tower. Li Zongjio's footsteps had only stopped at the 10th floor. Logically speaking, this continuous deduction was something that consumed a lot of energy. It was already very impressive that he could stop at this moment. With so much energy, it was enough to support him until now. It was already very impressive. He should at least come out and take a breather. There were less than 3 days left until the Origin Weapon Conference on the 10th of October. However, during these 2 days, Xiao Zhao had been running back and forth between the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor and Li Zongjio's manor. He had even left this message dozens of times. However, he still did not receive a reply from Li Zongjio. Could it be that this guy was afraid, so he went into hiding? If that was the case, it would be a huge blow to the 7-star fire room. Li Zongjio, could it be that he ran away? But there is no need for him to run away. He didn't even get any reward. Xiao Zhao was also very anxious. How could Li Zongjio disappear just like that? No matter how hard he tried, he could not contact Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio had never even seen the Raging Flames dragon catcher before, so there was no way he would be able to execute it. He would need at least 2 or 3 days to familiarize himself with the origin weapon in his hand. Moreover, it was such a powerful origin weapon. He would need even more time to familiarize himself with it and master its operation. Xiao Zhao was waiting at the entrance of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. 2 days passed in a flash. It was already the 9th of October. However, Li Zongjio was still nowhere to be seen. Poor Xiao Zhao had been waiting at the entrance of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor for 2 whole days. He did not even dare to leave, fearing that Li Zongjio would disappear from under his eyes if he was not careful. Even the young mistress had been urging him several times. It's over, it's over. My career is ruined. When Xiao Zhao saw a ray of light in the sky, it seemed like a demon was slowly walking toward Xiao Zhao. The 7-star Fire Room's team had already set off. Fortunately, the young miss had prepared a backup plan in order to prevent failure in this origin weapon conference. She had invited a martial arts genius from the Imperial Martial Pavilion. This martial arts genius had been born in the grasslands. However, he had displayed great talent and strength in the Imperial Martial Pavilion. He was quickly recruited by a mysterious person. As a result, he had made rapid progress. During this period of time, the martial arts genius from the Imperial Martial Pavilion was the one who had shown the brightest. Although there was a certain degree of risk in using these youngsters, under Song Jiyu's strong request, 2 youngsters were sent to fight for their raging dragon slaying flames. At the top of the Golden Mountain, the people from the various origin artifact stores had also arrived and gathered at this place. Outside an open-air arena, tables and chairs were placed all around, and the flag of their stores was inserted into the ground. 3 tables and chairs were placed at the front of the 7-star Fire Room. Song Jiyu had also arrived early. Sitting at the side was a man wearing a white Han Chinese robe. He had a 9-winged flying phoenix belt around his waist. Just this belt, which looked like a shoelace, was worth nearly 1,000,000 gold yuan. Such extravagance did not seem to belong to a warrior who had been born in the grasslands. However, his talent was great and the potential he had displayed had also attracted the attention of many people. It could be said that he had reached the sky in a single step through his own efforts. However, Song Jiyu realized that the young man beside her was very bold. His gaze was extremely dishonest as it swept back and forth across Song Jiyu's body. Song Jiyu could not help but feel disgusted. I heard that other than me, there is another person who will fight for the 7-star Fire Room. In my opinion, there is no need for that. Let that kid go back to where he came from. With me, Zhan Bufan, by Miss Song's side, there is nothing for Miss Song to worry about. The man opened his mouth and said, I naturally trust young Master Zhan's skills. However, there are only 2 spots for this conference. It is only a backup plan. Song Jiyu said indifferently, if young Master Zhan has the time, you can first understand the strength of your opponent. As he said that, his subordinate placed a stack of information in front of Zhan Bufan. There is no need to waste time on this. There are only 2 opponents who can enter my eyes. One is the Dragon Axe Elder from the Qingyuan Mountain Villa, and the other is the Southwest Sword Sect. The rest are not worthy of fighting with me. Zhan Bufan pushed away the information in his hand and seemed to move closer to Song Jiyu. I heard that Miss Song likes to admire flowers. The 100 Flower Festival will be in a few days. I wonder if Miss Song is interested? Let's talk about it after young Master Zhan wins today's competition. Song Jiyu also smiled slightly. She had seen many self-righteous and disgusting people like this in her daily life. Therefore, she did not think much of it. Did he really think that he could stand at the same height as her after climbing up the tree? That was simply wishful thinking. If this Zhan Bufan could restrain himself a little, perhaps Song Jiyu would think more highly of him. But now, he completely gave off the feeling of a petty person intoxicated by success. This caused Song Jiyu to become extremely cold. Although this Zhan Bufan was disgusting, there was still value in him that could be unearthed. Once he no longer had any value, Song Jiyu would directly abandon him. It was the same for everyone. However, Song Jiyu also turned her head to look at the seat beside her. This Li Zongjio actually did not appear until now. This caused Song Jiyu's heart to be filled with dissatisfaction. As expected, there was not a single reliable person among these young people. Chapter 481. In front of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, Xiao Zhao leaned against the carriage. She had never cultivated before, so she naturally could not withstand the sleepiness. It was already very good that she was able to endure for 2 days. Just as Xiao Zhao was about to fall asleep, she felt someone patting her shoulder. Who is it? Xiao Zhao rubbed her eyes in a daze. She seemed to want to turn around and continue sleeping, but she suddenly thought of something, and her whole person suddenly woke up. Li Zongjio. When Xiao Zhao saw the person beside her, her eyes suddenly widened. You finally appeared? What time is it now? Don't worry, we are about to reach the Golden Mountain. However, the panda eyes on your face are indeed a little exaggerated. You will feel better after eating this elixir. As Li Zongjio said, he handed a 5-colored elixir to Xiao Zhao. As the brilliance on top of the elixir flowed, it seemed to emit a kind of mesmerizing temptation, constantly attracting Xiao Zhao to eat it. Xiao Zhao swallowed her saliva after seeing it. Then I will eat it. Xiao Zhao swallowed the elixir at once and immediately felt that her exhausted body was filled with vitality again. Even her body that had not washed for 2 days gradually dissipated at this moment. Finally, a trace of fragrance filled the air, and the fatigue in her body was also swept away at this moment. This made Xiao Zhao could not help but exclaim in amazement. This elixir is really amazing. Xiao Zhao said in surprise. What kind of elixir is this? It's nothing, just a high-grade 5 elixir. Li Zongjio said lightly, but his words made Xiao Zhao instantly shocked. She could not believe that she had just eaten a high-grade 5 elixir. This? How is this? Xiao Zhao immediately became a little flustered. A level 5 high-grade elixir, even if she had a lifetime of salary, she would not be able to afford it. How could such a thing happen? Li Zongjio actually gave her such a precious elixir. Li Zongjio slowly said when he saw Xiao Zhao panicking like a rabbit and not knowing what to do. I'm just kidding. It's just a grade 1 pill that I casually concocted. It's just to refresh the mind. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, Xiao Zhao wished she could take off her shoes and crazily hit Li Zongjio's head. He actually dared to tease her like this. But after thinking about it carefully for a while, Xiao Zhao also noticed. The effect of this 1st-grade medicinal pill of yours is even better than the 3rd-grade medicinal pills I've eaten before. May I ask, what's your alchemy level? Xiao Zhao asked carefully, afraid that her question would cause Li Zongjio to be dissatisfied. In fact, this was a taboo question for most experts. What kind of strength one possessed would naturally be kept a secret? If one were to tell others about it openly, wouldn't that be exposing one's own weakness in front of others? But Xiao Zhao was extremely curious, so she asked this question. At the same time, she carefully observed Li Zongjio's expression to see if there were any changes. Li Zongjio seemed to have entered a serious state of thinking. Well, you may not believe it, but it's about grade 9. When Xiao Zhao heard this, she immediately rolled her eyes at Li Zongjio. You really have the nerve to say such words. It really made Xiao Zhao feel proud of your cultivation. I believe that it will be possible in the future. However, Xiao Zhao did not expose Li Zongjio. Instead, he encouraged him. The speed of this carriage is too slow. If we go up the mountain, I don't know what will happen. Xiao Zhao also frowned. In the next second, Li Zongjio directly grabbed Xiao Zhao's shoulder and threw him towards the sky. Boom! Ah! Xiao Zhao's figure instantly rose into the air and flew towards the sky. And Xiao Zhao was so scared that he screamed. He never thought that one day he would be thrown into the sky. Then Xiao Zhao felt that someone was lifting his clothes, and his body suddenly fell at this moment. Whoosh! Xiao Zhao was so scared that he tightly hugged Li Zongjio's arm and did not dare to open his eyes for a long time. However, after a moment of nervousness, Xiao Zhao immediately realized that the surrounding situation seemed to be a little strange. When he opened his eyes again, he found that he was already at the top of the mountain, and in front of his family's Mississippi. He was still tightly hugging one of Li Zongjio's arms. After she came to her senses, she immediately flung Li Zongjiu's hand away. In her panic, her face turned red. She did not expect that the situation would develop into such a situation. Just a moment ago, they were still at the foot of the mountain. In the blink of an eye, they appeared in front of the young lady. Furthermore, they were in such an ambiguous position. This immediately caused Xiao Zhao to feel so ashamed that she did not dare to face anyone. But he still braced himself and walked in front of Miss, and reported in a low voice. Miss, Li Zongjiu is here. Song Jiyu glanced at Xiao Zhao, and then looked at Li Zongjiu, who was casually walking over, and her heart was filled with anger. Not to mention that he was late, he actually dared to flirt with her assistant. She was really blind to have invited these two over. But even though she was cursing in her heart, she still had to greet them with a smile on her face. Young Master Li, we meet again. We've met before? Li Zongjiu asked with a puzzled face. It seemed that he had never seen Song Jiyu before. Young Master Li is really a person of high status with short memories. Previously, when you were buying yuan weapons with a girl in the 7-star flame room, I was there as well. Oh, I remember now. You also gave me a set of thunder sound short arrows to curry favor with me. Li Zongjiu suddenly realized. When he was buying things in the 7-star flame room, he went with San Tong. At that time, he encountered some trouble, and it was Song Jiyu who came forward to solve it. But it was so long ago. For Li Zongjiu, it was already very good that he could remember. Okay, let bygones be bygones. Sit down. Li Zongjiu said. There were a total of 3 chairs at the front. Li Zongjiu directly sat on the chair in the middle. Why are you in a daze? Sit down. Song Jiyu wanted to stab Li Zongjiu to death because that was her seat. But now that Li Zongjiu sat on it, she could only sit beside him. She couldn't ask Li Zongjiu to move away. In the end, Song Jiyu also signaled Xiao Zhao to leave first, and she also sat down. Miss Song, even if you are looking for a substitute, you should find someone more steady. If he doesn't even have a sense of time, no matter where he goes, he will be trash. Chapter 482. The thing that Song Jiyu was most worried about had happened. When these two bastards met, it was inevitable that something like this would happen. Obviously, Zhan Bufan did not put Li Zongjiu in his eyes at all. If they were to fight among themselves now, wouldn't it be a joke to outsiders? Li Zongjiu turned around and looked at the person beside him. What are you looking at? I'm talking about you. Remember, my name is Zhan. Before Zhan Bufan could finish his words, Li Zongjiu directly slapped him. The speed of the slap was extremely fast. Although Zhan Bufan knew that he would anger Li Zongjiu, he did not expect Li Zongjiu to actually dare to attack him directly. He was too arrogant and did not care about the big picture. But most importantly, Zhan Bufan only had time to see the slap coming. He had no way to dodge it. His eyes could see it, but his body could not keep up with the speed of the slap. Slap. Li Zongjiu's slap landed on Zhan Bufan's face and sent him flying. With a bang, Zhan Bufan fell to the ground and could not get up for a long time. Zhan Bufan only felt that he was seeing stars, but at this moment he only had one thought. And that was to kill Li Zongjiu. He actually dared to attack him in front of so many people. Moreover, it was a slap on his face. This made Zhan Bufan extremely angry. After shaking his head, the yuan energy around his body began to condense. Bang! A chair directly smashed on Zhan Bufan's head, directly smashing his body back to the ground. Eccentric, what the hell is this? Li Zongjiu threw the wreckage of the chair on Zhan Bufan's body. If Li Zongjiu wanted to hit someone, he did not need to care about the occasion or the time. After living for so many years, he could see through people's morals with a single glance. Therefore, when it came to Zhan Bufan, he didn't say a word and directly knocked him down. Even Han Wuxiu couldn't avoid Li Zongjiu's slap, let alone this guy who hadn't even graduated from the Imperial Martial Pavilion. Song Jiyu's eyelids twitched. Wasn't Li Zongjiu a little too ruthless and decisive in his actions? Even in this noisy venue, it did not attract too much attention. After all, the venue was in a state of chaos. Many people did not even have a proper reaction to what had happened. Originally, This person was here to replace Li Zongjio in the event that he failed. However, in front of the powerful Li Zongjio, he did not even have any effect. He was directly taken down. This caused Song Jiyu to be unable to react. However, these things still had to be done. She quickly ordered people to drag Jean Buffon away. She thought that Jean Buffon would be a king, but he was not even a bronze. You haven't seen the Raging Flames Dragon Catcher. I'll let Xiao Zhao bring you down to familiarize yourself with it. Song Jiyu asked. This was related to the appearance of their new Yuan tool. Therefore, they had to improve their reputation. Now that Jean Buffon was eliminated by their own people, the only one left was naturally Li Zongjio. All hope was on Li Zongjio. Song Jiyu did not want any trouble. As of now, although they did not directly pay the commission, the Raging Flames Dragon Catcher's production cost was not low. It was equivalent to hundreds of millions of yuan. No need. I'm more familiar with the Raging Flames Dragon Catcher than you. Li Zongjio said indifferently. At the same time, he was flipping through a scroll in his hand. This scroll was brought out by Li Zongjio from the Genius Pavilion. As the saying goes, one can learn the new by reviewing the old. It was necessary to take out and study some aspects that he had not touched before. Li Zongjio was also good at finding his own weakness. Only then could he break through his own limits and find his own weakness. Only then could he break through his own weakness. More familiar than me. When she heard these words, Song Jiyu almost had the impulse to explode. She thought that Li Zongjio was a powerful person, but she never thought that the latter was also an arrogant and shameless person. Some of the design inspirations of the Raging Flames Dragon Catcher were even participated in by her, and she still boasted so shamelessly. Coupled with the fact that she had ignored Song Jiyu's charms in the beginning, there was no time or opportunity for him to take revenge on her. Fine, then I'll see what kind of ability you have today. It would be best if he made a fool of himself in front of everyone and was directly blown to death. That would naturally satisfy Song Jiyu. These are some information about your opponents. If you're interested, you can take a look first. Not interested. Li Zongjio said. Someone had already cleared the arena, and there were some singing and dancing performances going on. It was very pleasing to the eye, and could be said to be quite rich. The organizer was also the city's Commerce Alliance. The Commerce Alliance did not participate in the competition, but was responsible for providing manpower and effort to hold this Origin Weapon Conference well. This time, there were more than 15 merchant forces participating in the Origin Weapon Conference, and those who were not selected had more than 100 kinds of Origin weapons of different levels. If they could win the King of Origin Weapons this time, it would be a milestone victory for the 7 Stars Fire Room. They would win this honor for 2 consecutive years. Who would have thought that Li Zongjio didn't care about his opponent's situation at all? He was even more unreliable than Jean Buffon. At the very least, Jean Buffon would have some understanding of these things and roughly know the strength of each person. After all, this information was painstakingly collected and naturally, it was very valuable. Song Jiyu could not tolerate Li Zongjio's unreliable behavior. Even if Li Zongjio did not look at it, she was obligated to explain the situation clearly. Naturally, you don't have to worry about the rest, but there are 2 people you must pay attention to. One is the person invited by Sky Sword Pavilion, nicknamed Southwest Sword Master, who is at the peak of Origin Ancestor Realm. The other is the Dragon Axe Elder invited by Blade Axe Pavilion, whose strength is unusually strong, even above Southwest Sword Master. This person comes from Qingyuan Villa. Pa! Li Zongjio put away the scroll in his hand and looked at Song Jiyu. Where is the one from Qingyuan Villa? Li Zongjio asked. In his heart, he could not help but think that Qingyuan Villa was really mischievous. No matter where he went, he would meet these people from Qingyuan Villa. This allowed Li Zongjio to have something to amuse himself with after a meal. Hearing that Li Zongjio was finally interested, Song Jiyu heaved a sigh of relief. Thank God he was finally interested. The Dragon Axe Elder, who carries an axe called the Dragon Bone Axe Handle all year round, should be that person. That side is also full of people from Blade Axe Pavilion. The reputation of Blade Axe Pavilion in Sacred Flame Royal City was not inferior to the 7-Star Fire Room. The yuan weapons of the 7-star fire room were strange, but they were involved in all kinds of industries. However, Blade Axe Pavilion specialized in research and forging, bold and decisive. It was precisely these two items that allowed them to establish an extremely huge foundation and an explosive reputation. This allowed everyone to know that the Saber Axe Pavilion's sabers and axes were the strongest items in Sacred Flame Royal City. In addition, Sky Sword Pavilion was also an expert in forging sword-related yuan weapons. If there were people who really liked powerful sword-related yuan weapons, most of them would choose to purchase them from Sky Sword Pavilion. Chapter 483. Li Zongjio immediately spotted the so-called Dragon Axe Elder. His body was lean and muscular, and his skin was tanned. His eyes were brimming with vigor as he constantly scanned the arena. However, wherever his gaze landed, it was basically a group of young ladies. He was already so old, yet he was still interested in such things. Li Zongjio instantly sneered in his heart. "Are there any rules in this arena?" Li Zongjio asked. "If there are any rules, the competition will be based on the way the arena is defended. The one who can challenge for victory and successfully defend the arena to the end will be the winner. At the same time, during this process, you are not allowed to use excessive yuan power. You can only use the yuan tool in your hand. Of course, this competition will naturally be based on the rules. If there are any accidents in the process, we will naturally not be responsible. After all, this is a yuan tool and not a child's play." After Li Zongjio heard this, he was extremely satisfied with the rules and immediately nodded his head. "That's good. Where's my yuan tool?" Song Jiyu raised her hand and someone brought a rectangular box that was about half a meter long and placed it in front of Li Zongjio. The item in the box seemed to be extremely heavy. "It's here. This is my 7-star fire room's newest offensive yuan tool, Raging Dragon Slaying." When she spoke of this yuan tool, Song Jiyu had a hint of pride in her voice. After all, the birth of this yuan tool had cost the 7-star fire room a lot of effort. Li Zongjio opened the yuan tool and immediately saw a familiar face in front of him. His eyes revealed a sense of nostalgia, as if he was reminiscing about an old friend. Compared to the scheming and deceitful people in this world, Li Zongjio preferred to stay with these cold yuan tools because they would not betray him. Instead, they would help him kill people. Such a thought was naturally extremely terrifying. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was extremely normal. After all, those who had stayed for a long time would mostly like these emotionless things. The design of this Raging Dragon Catcher was quite advanced. It looked more like a fully armed sword case. There were a few buttons and switches on it, as well as a trigger. If an ordinary person didn't have the instructions, it would be very difficult for them to get this Raging Dragon Catcher right. They might even fire it at themselves. There was an inlaid hole in the front, and 3 crystals were placed beside it. These were all energy sources. Without these crystals, there was no way to activate the Raging Flames Dragon Capture. He had originally thought that Li Zongjio would scoff at the origin tool in his hand and the Raging Flames Dragon capturing. After all, many people thought that this thing was flashy but not practical. It didn't look useful at all. However, when Song Jiyu saw Li Zongjio's eyes, there wasn't the slightest disdain or contempt. Instead, there was a kind of appreciation and nostalgia. This was also a great affirmation for them. To be able to create such an origin tool, at least to be able to obtain Li Zongjio's recognition, was naturally quite good. I now announce that this year's Origin Tool Grand Competition officially begins. Who is willing to be the first to come up and be the champion of the arena to receive challenges from all sides? After a song and dance performance, a white-haired old man spoke a lot of things on the arena. Now, the grand competition had finally begun. As soon as he finished speaking, someone directly jumped onto the arena. He cupped his fists towards the old man, then towards the surrounding people. My Sky Hammer Blacksmith Workshop spent 100 years researching and improving. Today I, Yuan, am here, holding my Sky Hammer Blacksmith Workshop's 100/star shattering blade. I hope that everyone will not be stingy with your guidance. Yuan, who was on the arena, held a long blade that was half his body. The back of the blade was embedded with 9 thick copper rings. It was majestic and domineering. This Sky Hammer Blacksmith Workshop is an old faction that has been passed down from generation to generation in the Yuan clan. The quality of their blades is indeed not bad. However, under most circumstances, these blades are only suitable for strength-type experts. Sometimes, when the Empire is lacking in military equipment, they will let the Sky Hammer Blacksmith Workshop act as a backup. Song Jiyu, who was beside him, patiently explained. As an expert in weapon sales, it was natural to know oneself and know one's enemy in order to be victorious in every battle. There were many such top workshops in the market. The 7-star workshop was able to do step by step until now because of their own ability and the support of a large group of people. That was why they could reach where they were today. It was unknown whether Li Zongjio listened or not. He merely looked at the scroll in his hand and responded without raising his head. When Song Jiyu saw Li Zongjio's attitude, she was naturally incomparably angry. She, the dignified eldest miss of the 7-star workshop, was speaking to you. Even if you didn't understand, you should at least pretend to understand and at least respond. What was the meaning of this perfunctory response? Was it a polite reply? If it's a competition of blades, then naturally, the blades of my Blade Axe Pavilion will dominate the world. Senior Dragon Axe, sorry to trouble you. A person from the Blade Axe Pavilion stood up and spoke respectfully to an old man beside him. When the old man heard this, he snorted softly, as if his vanity had been greatly satisfied. Immediately, he also stood up slowly. He took a heavy saber axe from the Saber Axe Pavilion's hand. My Blade Axe Pavilion invites Elder Dragon Axe to battle. This battle's divine weapon is the iron-blooded golden blade axe. A blade axe that released a brilliant light appeared under the sunlight. When the sunlight fell, everyone's faces seemed to be covered with a layer of golden light. This golden light also illuminated Li Zongjio. This old man is going up? When he saw Elder Dragon Axe going up, Li Zongjio subconsciously grabbed the raging dragon capturing flames and almost rushed up. Fortunately, Song Jiyu held on tightly. What are you doing? He just went up. The competition is about one-on-one. Bystanders can't interfere. If you rush up like this, it's against the rules. Song Jiyu hurriedly said. Oh, if that's the case, then I'll wait a little longer. After saying that, Li Zongjio sat back down. Song Jiyu also kept holding her forehead. She should have found a normal person to help her. Even now, she didn't know if Li Zongjio knew how to use the raging dragon capturing flames. On the field, Elder Dragon Axe's aura was extremely strong. Upon seeing this, Yuan Lai from the Yuan clan was somewhat fearful. However, he still braced himself and charged forward. After all, this was a Yuan weapon competition and it did not mean that the one with the stronger Yuan power would be the victor. A good weapon naturally needed an expert to use it in order to display its power. Star-shattering slash. Yuan Lai roared and a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the long blade in his hand. It was as if he could easily shatter a star in front of him. Trash, trash. When Elder Dragon Axe saw this, he only smiled disdainfully. Chapter 484. The iron blood golden blade axe in front of the Dragon Axe old man also suddenly emitted a golden light formation at this moment. Immediately, an extremely terrifying aura erupted. Boom! This aura came from the iron blood golden saber axe, not the Dragon Axe Elder's own aura. The Dragon Axe Elder swung the saber axe, which was almost as tall as a person, towards the star-shattering slash. Boom! The two berserk blades collided at this moment. Yuan Lai's figure was the first to fly out. The 100/star-shattering blade in his hand instantly flew out. When the 100/star-shattering blade landed to the side, Yuan Lai's hands were also greatly shaken. At this moment, he crawled up with a shocked expression in his eyes. You broke the rules. Yuan Lai pointed at the Dragon Axe Elder and said. The Dragon Axe Elder had obviously used his hidden strength in that move. Otherwise, how could he have been shaken off by the collision of the blades? Although he was not as skilled as the Dragon Axe Elder, he had blatantly broken the rules. Everyone was not blind, and they knew that he did not put the Merchant Union in his eyes at all. However, a member of the Ironware Merchant Union, who was a notary, did not say much. Ha Yuan Lai, you are not as generous as your father. You have lost. I have to admit that your blade is not bad. It can be guaranteed that it did not break under our iron blood golden saber axe elder. Ha! The deputy pavilion master of the saber axe pavilion stood up and laughed. There were not many opponents who could compete with them. In addition, the vicious and merciless old man Dragon Axe had made his move. He did not give them any face at all. With such a vicious person present, what was there to be afraid of? It was important to win the final victory, but it was also necessary to shine in the beginning. You don't have to be polite. Just challenge me. The Dragon Axe Elder did not walk down. Instead, he stuck the iron blood golden saber axe on the ground and leaned on it. In this way, he seemed to be waiting for the enemy to come up and continue to chop them into pieces. Many people had yet to react to the Dragon Axe Elder's blade and axe. Yi Shiwen was defeated in one move, but his opponent's 100/star-shattering blade didn't suffer any damage. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that the 100/star-shattering blade was very tyrannical, but it was at a disadvantage because of its user. Can I go now? Immediately, Li Zongjio raised his raging dragon slayer and walked forward. He didn't even need Song Jiyu's permission. Clearly, he wasn't asking for Song Jiyu's permission. According to Song Jiyu's opinion, they would still choose to wait. After all, if Li Zongjio were to walk up right now, it would mean that he would have to deal with the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's members in a moment. Moreover, the advantage of using a weapon like Raging Flames was the element of surprise. Everyone present was an expert. By the time he was ready to fire, his opponent would have long since dodged the attack. However, before he could say anything, he saw Li Zongjio walk up to the ring. Song Jiyu had no choice. She had to die sooner or later. She gestured to Xiao Zhao beside her. Xiao Zhao immediately took a step forward. The 7-star Firehouse is here to challenge you. This time, the Yuan weapon of the 7-star Firehouse is a control-type Yuan weapon, Raging Dragon Slayer. The user is Li Zongjio, the top of the new student ranking in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Xiao Zhao's clear and loud voice spread throughout the whole arena. Everyone could hear it clearly. Immediately, everyone's eyes focused on the long metal tool in Li Zongjio's hand. 2 long pitch-black pipes protruded from it. It seemed that this thing was the real threat, but it looked like a child's toy no matter how one looked at it. Only now did Li Zongjio know that these people had given him the title of the top of the freshman list. It was really embarrassing. He was already so old, but he still had to compete with these little brats for the top position. It was really embarrassing. However, these people didn't know. The Dragon Axe Elder also looked at Li Zongjio in front of him. He was actually a child. He saw the strange Yuan weapon in Li Zongjio's hand. If one had to describe this Yuan weapon, it looked like 2 pitch-black pipes inlaid together. The handle was slightly slender. It could be held with one hand or with 2 hands. There was also a groove in front of the handle. At this moment, there was a Yuan energy crystal embedded in the groove. Could these 2 pitch-black pipes kill people? Could this thing be called a Yuan weapon? Let me tell you. Only something that can kill people can be called a Yuan weapon. Is there no one in the 7-star Firehouse this year? They actually let a child come up with a toy. You guys are really good. If you want to attract attention, you guys are definitely the most eye-catching one this year. Ha! The deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion suddenly laughed. Although Li Zongjio was the new king from the Heavenly Star Medicine Mansion, it didn't have the slightest impact on them. What's more, everyone in the Heavenly Star Medicine Mansion was a bunch of crazy alchemists. If they were to use Yuan weapons to fight, it would be better to just give them a medicine cauldron and let them go around smashing people. Song Jiyu and the others didn't say anything. The other party just wanted to wait for an opportunity to suppress the 7-star Firehouse. It didn't matter. As long as they could win in the end, it wouldn't be a problem. Are you from the Qingyuan Villa? Li Zongjio looked at the Dragon Axe Elder opposite him and asked faintly. When he was asked about his identity, the Dragon Axe Elder's face seemed to have a kind of uncontrollable pride. That's right. If you want to join the villa, you have to find me first. The dragon axe elder's face suddenly revealed an extremely proud expression. Well, that's good. Do you have anything to say later? I'm afraid you won't have time later, Li Zongjio asked kindly. When the dragon axe elder heard Li Zongjio's words, he couldn't help but be stunned. What is this brat talking about? Could it be that he wants me to leave behind my last words? How dare you tease me? Watch me chop your head off. The dragon axe elder immediately roared and rushed towards Li Zongjio. The iron-blooded golden blade axe in his hand also swung around and chopped towards Li Zongjio. Boom! That tyrannical power instantly lifted up the floorboards on the ground. Li Zongjio's figure didn't move an inch. When he felt the power sweeping towards him, he also took a step back. He instantly lifted the Fury Dragon capturing in his hand. It was like a long spear, and it instantly flew out. Bang! The Fury Dragon capturing instantly collided with the iron-blooded golden blade axe. Clang! When the two collided, there was also a shift in the movement. Li Zongjio's figure moved to the side, dodging the blade and axe that fell from the sky and chopped the ground with his shoes. The pitch-black barrel in Li Zongjio's hand was directly pressed against the dragon axe elder's cheek. What? The dragon axe elder didn't know how Li Zongjio did it. In the next second he saw the Yuan energy crystal in the groove light up. The dragon axe elder's eyes suddenly widened. Boom! Chapter 485. Li Zongjio directly released the furious dragon capturing attack. In an instant, the dragon axe elder's head exploded. His entire head directly exploded on the spot, spurting out flames from the furious dragon capturing attack. At this moment, she was displaying her unique charm and frightening side. When the flames gradually subsided, the people in the audience did not even have time to react. Even Song Jae-yu, whose heart was fluctuating, was in a state of suspense. Before she could relax, she saw Li Zongjio directly explode the dragon axe elder's head. Was this a magic trick? That was a human life, and he was directly hung up and beaten to death. Although there was no one present who had not seen a dead person, but the person whose head had been directly blown up in the ring was an expert from Qingyuan Villa, Old Man Dragon Axe. Song Jae-yu took a closer look. That Old Man Dragon Axe was already dead to the point that he couldn't be more dead. Although this situation was unexpected, it was still within reason. However, this was merely a display of Li Zongjio's strength. It did not explain how powerful the Raging Flames Dragon Slayer was. Li Zongjio did not seem to be satisfied and directly used the furious dragon capturing attack again. With a boom, a flame spurted out from within. The terrifying flame instantly burned the dragon axe elder's corpse until there was nothing left. The only thing left was the iron-blooded golden saber axe. The deputy pavilion master of the saber axe pavilion could not sit still. Referee, this guy actually used a dirty trick. He is here to kill, not to compete with you on weapon. My origin tool is still fine, but he killed someone. What's going on? The deputy pavilion master of the saber axe pavilion immediately stood up and shouted. Originally, it was nothing, but later, Li Zongjio used a move to destroy the corpse, which completely confirmed that Li Zongjio's purpose was to deal with the dragon axe elder. If the saber axe pavilion's axe is used to kill pigs, it may be more efficient, but if it is used to kill people, it will be a little difficult. Song Jae-yu immediately responded with a sneer. At this moment, the 7-star fire room had the advantage. No matter how you quibbled, the loser was the saber axe pavilion, not the 7-star fire room. What could you do now that the person was dead? Apart from the people of the saber axe pavilion who were angry, the rest of the people were also waiting for the show to begin. They were delighted to see the 7-star fire room and the saber axe pavilion squabble. This was a scene of two tigers fighting against each other. Yes, the saber axe pavilion can't do it. You can blame others for being too strong. In my opinion, the saber axe pavilion's weapon in the future, the saber pavilions to make butcher's knives. If you can't even kill pigs, you can kill. Yuan Lai from the Sky Hammer Blacksmith Workshop also stepped forward at this moment. The enemy of an enemy was naturally a friend. In any case, They were already at odds with the Saber Axe Pavilion. Now that they could show some goodwill to the 7-star firehouse, why not? Even in such a weapon origin conference, in fact, various interests were intertwined. If there were no benefits, they would naturally not do it. What does it have to do with you? You're just a group of losers. The deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion scolded back. Similar scenes happened from time to time. After all, victory and defeat were common in war. However, in this business world, even if one lost on the surface, as long as one used it properly, there was a chance to turn the situation around. As long as one could make money, there was no failure. No matter what one did, it was possible. It seemed that this weapon origin conference would directly turn into a street corner quarrel. Finally, the person in charge of the Ironware Merchant Alliance stood up. Everyone, please calm down. The young hero's performance just now did not violate the rules. What he showed could not only kill people, but also destroy corpses. These belong to the category of weapon origin. There is nothing wrong with it. You can only blame the Dragon Axe Elder for being inferior. The person in charge of the Ironware Merchant Alliance stood up and said. Hearing that the person in charge of the Merchant Alliance had spoken, the person in charge of the Saber Axe Pavilion did not continue to cause trouble. Instead, he sat back down and looked at the young man in his 20s beside him. There was a trace of respect in his eyes. Young Master Changhen, next, we can only ask for your help. Facing this young man, even the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion appeared to be extremely respectful and careful. He was extremely careful, fearing that he would accidentally offend the young man in front of him. The young man put down the tea in his hand. Don't worry. Let's wait and see. This kid is very interesting. He actually dares to provoke our Qingyun villa? Young Master Changhen said indifferently. Since Li Zongjio loved to show off so much, he would give him a chance to show off. At the end, he would trample him under his feet and let him know that a frog at the bottom of a well like him had nothing to be proud of. However, I am somewhat interested in the origin weapon in his hand. There's also that woman. Young Master Changhen's gaze fell on Song Jiu. The charm and confidence that this woman exuded greatly interested young Master Changhen. He immediately stepped forward and pushed her down. This woman is the eldest daughter of the 7-star fire branch, Song Jiu. Currently, all the businesses in Royal City are managed by this woman. Song Jiu's ability was extremely well known in the industry. Because Song Jiu was young, the 7-star fire room could only be earned in some small cities, even second-class cities and below. In such a fierce competition in King City, there was no way for her to stand out. However, after this young Song Jiu took over, the reputation of the 7-star fire room had actually been gradually raised. Now, it could be considered a giant. This was a huge difference from the situation that everyone was not optimistic about in the beginning. Regardless, even if the enemy was admired, they were still your enemy. Somewhat interesting. The corners of young Master Changhen's mouth curled into an inexplicable smile as he stared at Song Jiu. At this moment, Song Jiu seemed to have sensed young Master Changhen's gaze and looked at him. Song Jiu's heart was filled with disgust for no reason. It was as though she saw a mouthful of phlegm staining her most beloved clothes. The 7-star fire branch has won this battle. The next challenger may enter the arena. After witnessing Li Zongjio's ferocious performance, where he killed without batting an eye, the people below naturally became extremely fearful. Even those who were previously full of confidence became somewhat timid at this moment. This was because if they were not careful, they would lose their lives. Forget it. How many of you are left? Come at me together. Li Zongjio looked at the time. It was getting late and he did not have time to waste on these small fries. Chapter 486. Arrogant. Domineering. Stupid. Song Jiu's mind immediately popped up with these adjectives. The intelligence of Li Zongjio in front of her was even lower than a 3-year-old child. Even if you were confident, 2 fists would not be able to fight against 4 hands. Furthermore, it was on this stage. No matter how confident you were, you should not be so arrogant. There were a total of 15 yuan weapon shops participating in this final battle. Excluding the 2 shops that had already lost, there were still 12 shops left. Li Zongjiu's words meant that he was going to target these 12 experts. Furthermore, if the Saber Axe Pavilion and the Sky Hammer Blacksmith Shop also wanted to send people up, there would be no problem. This was because all the shops were able to send 2 experts up. As long as they did not go up at the same time, there would be no problem no matter when they went up. This Li Zongjiu. Song Jiu slapped her hand on the armrest of her chair. Xiao Zhao also hurriedly came in front of Song Jiu to persuade her. Miss, don't worry. Perhaps young Master Li will have his own way. However, even Xiao Zhao did not believe that Li Zongjiu could defeat so many people by himself. However, the rest of the people did not give Li Zongjiu enough time and opportunity to regret. It was not that such an arrogant situation had not happened in the past, but the outcome was surprisingly the same. This was because in this battle, one was not allowed to use too much yuan power. One's yuan power could only be used on the yuan weapon in their hands. Otherwise, it would be against the rules. In such a chaotic and dangerous situation, 2 fists would not be able to fight against 4 hands. More or less, they would be ambushed. Therefore, only these arrogant and ignorant youngsters would take such a risk. At this moment, it was already too late for Song Jiu to stop them. My Shadowless Pavilion's Shadowless Blade, I would like to experience it. Cool Breeze Weapon Manual, Cool Breeze Su Lijian, I would like to experience it. Furious Exen Fong, Rusty Flying Needle, I would like to experience it. Some of the shop owners saw that there was an opportunity to take advantage of this situation and immediately jumped out one after another. Not long after, the 11 people on the stage were all filled. Those from Sky Sword Pavilion must not appear. Otherwise, we will definitely lose. Song Jiu kept praying in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. She knew that these people must be staring at her, observing the changes in her expression. They would definitely make a move. But soon, a voice pushed Song Jiu into the abyss. Chang Ruxu of the Southwest Sword Sect of the Sky Sword Pavilion is here with the Heaven Destroyer Sword. As soon as he finished speaking, the 11 people in the arena all dodged. Chang Ruxu of the Southwest Sword Sect. Just hearing this name was enough to make people feel an extremely terrifying aura. The Sky Destroyer sword in his hand, from its name, carried a sharpness. It's over, it's over. We don't need to care about the others, but the Southwest Sword Sect is a true expert. It is said that this person has already entered the Yuan Monarch realm. I wonder if this is true. But for us, it will definitely be extremely disadvantageous. A look of panic gradually appeared on Song Jiu's face. When the few leaders of Sky Sword Pavilion saw this scene, they exchanged glances with each other. Indeed, it was just a bluff. If this raging dragon capturing fury could withstand so many attacks, he would definitely be famous throughout the world. However, if he failed, he would only be a clown. Such a clown act would be quickly forgotten by others, or even treated as a joke. Even the Southwest Sword Sect had made a move. Song Jiu's heart was already dead. But before the situation of failure really arrived, she still had a last trace of hope in her heart. She hoped that Li Zongjiu could last a little longer. Only then would she have enough opportunity to create a topic of discussion. 1 against 12. Fortunately, this battle didn't allow the use of excessive essence energy. Otherwise, this Li Zongjiu would probably be directly sliced into a pile of fragments. But this challenge order was issued by him. Naturally, there was no need to care about whether he succeeded or not. They were all adults. They had to pay the price for their words. Since the 7-star fire chamber has decided to fight 1 against many, this challenge officially begins. The people of the Ironware Merchant Alliance were really impartial. They simply did not allow any situation to occur. If the Merchant Alliance was biased, then it was naturally useless to have the Merchant Alliance. Therefore, the Merchant Alliance had to be established in the middle. It would definitely not be biased because of anything. The 12 people opposite him held various yuan weapons. Faced with such a situation, Li Zongjiu did not have the slightest bit of fear. When the battle order was issued, Li Zongjiu took the lead and rushed towards these people. He is outnumbered, but he still takes the initiative to attack. Is Li Zongjio's brain filled with shit? When she saw Li Zongjio take the initiative to rush out, Song Jiu finally could not help but curse. Who could tolerate such an unscrupulous person who did not know the severity of the situation? No matter what the situation is, immediately terminate the cooperation with Li Zongjio. He is simply a madman. Up until now, Li Zongjio's actions could never be described as normal. Apart from that, he directly knocked Jean Buffon unconscious. Jean Buffon had only unintentionally said some arrogant words and was directly knocked out. Then, without saying a word, he rushed into the arena and directly blew up the head of the Dragon Axe Elder in front of so many people. That was not all. After blowing up the Dragon Axe Elder's head, he directly used a move to destroy the corpse. How could such a cruel act be tolerated? Now, he was even more like a lunatic. Not only did he say that he wanted to challenge these people, he actually took the initiative to rush to his death. However, the next scene was like an invisible hand that fiercely slapped Song Jiu's face. The raging dragon slayer in Li Zongjio's hands was like a divine weapon. Boom! 2 flame cannonballs directly covered the front of the arena in a sea of fire. Then, Li Zongjio also threw out a Yuan energy crystal. Once again, the cannonball hit the Yuan energy crystal. Boom! Immediately, a terrifying explosion was released from the Yuan energy crystal. In an instant, a layer of the surrounding ground was lifted. Immediately, there were 3 people who couldn't withstand this level of firepower fluctuations and instantly fell from the arena. Sky-destroying sword light. The Southwest Sword Master took the lead and broke through the flames. A terrifying sword light bloomed from the Heaven Destroyer sword in his hand. In everyone's view, Li Zongjio's tyrannical strength was something that only the Southwest Sword Master could contend with. That was what everyone was thinking. However, in Li Zongjio's view, the Southwest Sword Master in front of him was just a clown. Pa! Li Zongjio slapped the raging dragon slayer in his hand. Immediately, countless metal pieces emerged and formed a shield in front of him. Chapter 487. Boom. The Southwest Sword Sex sword light didn't cause any damage. What? The Southwest Sword Sex Master suddenly saw the Sky Destroyer in his hand being bitten by something that looked like a tiger's mouth. There was no way for him to pull it out. This immediately shocked the Southwest Sword Sex Master. Break! Li Zongjio growled. Instantly, the tiger's mouth exerted force and directly bit the Sky Destroyer. It was as if he had bitten a hole in it. Sensing the damage to the Sky Destroyer, the Southwest Sword Sex Master widened his eyes. He looked at the Sky Destroyer in his hand in disbelief. How is this possible? How does he even know about this? When Song Jiu saw this scene, she was simply stunned. This design could be said to be a small mechanism that she meticulously designed in order to be able to escape in such a situation. However, this indestructible small opening had to be very precise. Only when the opponent's weapon was placed there could it break the opponent's weapon. It wasn't very practical, but Song Jiu had added this function. It was so that she could display its effects at this moment. Sure enough, it didn't disappoint her. It could even be said that it really surprised her. Raging Dragon Slayer bit the Sky Destroyer that the Sky Sword Pavilion was extremely proud of. In fact, he only had time to display that sword light. He didn't even have the time to display the sharpness of the Sky Destroyer itself. However, Li Zongjio didn't have the time to wait for him to regain his senses. He directly sent out another cannon. The tongue of flame that spat out almost devoured the Southwest Sword Sex Master. However, the Southwest Sword Sex Master was extremely fast. When he saw that the situation wasn't good, he had already retreated. Boom. However, this move didn't miss. There was actually a rope hidden under the tongue of flame that instantly bound the Southwest Sword Sex Master's ankle. He could clearly feel the terrifying aura released by this flame rope. Immediately, the Southwest Sword Sex Master waved his finger and sent out a beam of sword energy. It easily cut through the flame rope. However, this move was equivalent to losing the qualifications. When his figure fell to the ground, it meant that the Sky Sword Pavilion represented by the Southwest Sword sect had also lost their opportunity. This made people exclaim in surprise. This Li Zhongjiu, is he a human or a god? Song Jiyu's eyes were filled with shock. From Li Zhongjiu's miraculous maneuvers, one could already see how terrifying Li Zhongjiu's strength was. Moreover, from the very beginning, he had directly defeated the Southwest Sword sect, which was the greatest threat. It was simply too beautiful. Although both sides had prepared two experts to fight, when one's weapon was almost fully displayed, or when there was no hope of victory, the second person was only a substitute, just in case. Losing one match was already embarrassing enough. If he lost two more matches, it would be even more humiliating. Even the Southwest Sword sect, which the other party had spent a huge sum of money to invite, had been defeated. Therefore, the rest of the people would likely not amount to much. Rusty flying needle. Suddenly, the flame appeared with a few whirlwinds, directly sweeping towards Li Zhongjiu. Under this flaming whirlwind, one could clearly see a few flying needles that appeared in a blur. In fact, they were constantly intertwining with each other. It was as if they were flying up and down, forming a unique formation that could take down the enemy. It was even able to confuse the enemy. When the dozens of rusty flying needles flew towards Li Zhongjiu amidst the intertwining light and darkness. Naturally, Li Zhongjiu was able to clearly capture these flying needles. If it was any other time, he would only need to use his mind to make these rusty flying needles return to their original path and turn the attacker into a hedgehog. However, he could not use such a method now. Li Zhongjiu did not panic at all. He directly patted the raging dragon capturing in his hand. Immediately, a row of small mechanisms appeared on the side of the raging dragon capturing. These mechanisms were instantly activated, flapping their wings and vibrating continuously into the distance. Boom! These mechanical birds were like fireflies. When they left the raging dragon capturing, they were able to move freely. When they suddenly appeared, they instantly attracted the flying needles. Boom! An extremely intense collision sound could be heard. The mechanical birds also automatically turned into balls of flames during the collision, disrupting the flying needles' trajectory. Xiu xiu xiu. All the flying needles were scattered to the side. When the attacker saw that his flying needle array had actually failed, he immediately widened his eyes. How is this possible? His eyes were filled with shock. However, in the next moment, he saw Li Zhongjiu aiming the pitch-black cannon in his hand directly at him. Boom! A loud sound could be heard. One could even feel that the surrounding space was being absorbed and compressed. A giant net formed by intertwining flames bloomed from the relatively thick cannon below. The area covered by this giant net was almost 1/10 of the entire arena. What? The flying needle expert had no time to react. He could only watch helplessly as the giant net surrounded him. The flames behind them had been extinguished one after another. However, as soon as they escaped, they saw the terrifying flame net appear and fly towards them. 5 people in a row were entangled by the giant net, and 6 of them rolled down the stage together. Now, there were only 2 people left on the stage. Dragon catching net. Sure enough, the effect is not bad. When Song Jiyu saw that Li Zhongjiu was able to unleash such a powerful effect with the Raging Flames Capture Dragon, she was extremely shocked. This was because Li Zhongjiu was very familiar with the controls of Raging Flames Dragon Slayer. He was even more familiar with it than her, who was one of the designers. Different situations would trigger different functions. Once the dragon catching net was shot out, the Raging Flames Dragon Slayer had to be used to undo it. Otherwise, even a Yuan King level elite would find it difficult to break free. Furthermore, the more one struggled, the tighter the net would be. When the dragon catching net was shot out, he had eliminated 6 people. This was even more shocking. If one was caught in a life and death battle, one could imagine how terrible the outcome would be. Life and death were decided by a hair's breadth. The 2 people who were temporarily standing on the stage were at a loss as they watched this scene unfold before them. Li Zhongjiu took his time to remove the depleted Yuan energy crystal from the Raging Flames Dragon Slayer's groove. Then he took out another one from his pocket. This was perhaps the only flaw of Raging Flame's Dragon Slayer. The energy supply had to be replaced in a timely manner. One could not directly insert a high-energy Yuan energy crystal, as that would affect the performance of Raging Flame's Dragon Slayer. Only a certain level of energy could be used. Too high or too low would not do. Therefore, it had to be replaced in a timely manner. Otherwise, the only use of Raging Flame's Dragon Slayer would be to equip a spare bayonet. Chapter 488. The 6 of them were trapped in the fire net. Although the flames had already been extinguished, the 6 of them were still trapped in a mess. There was no way for them to break free. Even if someone came forward to help, there was no effect at all. Seeing this situation, the remaining 2 looked at each other. From their eyes, one could naturally see a trace of respect. Naturally, there was no need to continue this fight. Otherwise, they would be like crabs that had been caught by the side. It would be extremely embarrassing for them to struggle. Bright Moon Workshop's Full Moon Scimitar admires you. Thousand Blades Pavilion, White Sparrow Bow, I'm convinced. One of them actually brought a bow-type Yuan tool. However, this was the end of the matter. If they were not convinced, they would be thrown off by Li Zongjio and end up being envious and embarrassed. Most importantly, they didn't get to see much before they were thrown down one after another. This was the most terrifying part. In the face of an unknown weapon that possessed great power, they naturally did not dare to act recklessly. After all, their reputation was more important. Since the 2 of them were convinced, Li Zongjio naturally did not need to continue. Keeping the Raging Dragon Slayer, he turned around and walked off the stage. Song Jiyu and the rest simply could not believe their eyes. This powerful Yuan artifact was actually able to unleash such a terrifying power. It directly defeated all the people from the 12 weapon shops. Such a battle result also caused Song Jiyu to be somewhat surprised. That Southwest Sword sect was probably defeated in an extremely pitiful manner. Who could have imagined that a mouth could actually extend out of that fellow's item and directly bite his Sky Destroyer sword in half? It's alright, Southwest Sword sect need not worry about it. In my opinion, their Yuan tool is ordinary, but the person who used it is a little strange. The Pavilion Master of Sky Sword Pavilion personally appeared and comforted Southwest Sword sect. Now that they had already lost the victory of the competition, they naturally could not lose the friendship of Southwest Sword sect. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a complete failure? That would be the real loss. What was happening now was nothing. There would always be a first place. If they could not do it this year, they would try again next year. Such a strange Yuan weapon, it would take a lot of time and effort to master it. Hence, the number of Yuan weapons sold would definitely be very low. However, the other party's reputation would definitely spread. Even though the reputation of this Raging Fire Dragon capturing was not too great, the reputation of this 7-star fire room would definitely soar for a period of time. I really didn't misjudge you. Song Jiyu's lips curled into a smile. On the other hand, Xiao Zhao muttered in his heart, "That's not what you said just now." Just 5 minutes ago, she even said that she wanted to terminate the contract with Li Zongjio. Therefore, for these women, there was no right or wrong. If they were happy, then it was right. If they were unhappy, then it was wrong. However, before Li Zongjio stepped down from the arena, he heard people clapping. Intuition told Li Zongjio that this applause was directed at him. Hee, wonderful, wonderful. Such a toy in the hands of these children is really interesting. With this thing, they can definitely dominate a street and become the king of children. It shouldn't be a problem. Young Master Changhen, who was sitting in the Saber Axe Pavilion, stood up and applauded. Although there was a smile on his face, there was not the slightest hint of congratulation. Instead, he was mocking and ridiculing Li Zongjio and the Yuan weapon in his hand. If the Saber Axe Pavilion is really capable, then use up the second challenge opportunity. Song Jiyu said indifferently, her voice echoing out. Young Master Changhen leaped into the air and landed on the stage. Entrusted by the Saber Axe Pavilion, today, I, Young Master Changhen, will display the Saber Axe Pavilion's newest Yuan weapon. As he spoke, Young Master Everlasting Hatred removed the oil paper covering the item in his hand bit by bit, revealing the item within. Buzz buzz. Streaks of lightning constantly danced on the tip of the blade. Swish. The tarpaulin was completely removed, revealing the things inside. It was a slender long blade. The Saber Axe Pavilion specialized in forging weapons like axes and hammers. They rarely dabbled in such small weapons. Of course, it wasn't that they didn't have any. However, this long blade with lightning attributes was obviously not made by the Saber Axe Pavilion. Although everyone knew this, they couldn't do anything about it. After all, the Saber Axe Pavilion had shamelessly claimed that it was theirs. There was nothing they could do about it. Thunder Beheading Blade is here to challenge. The Thunder Beheading Blade was able to split the power of lightning in half with a single strike. Such strength was absolutely terrifying. Just from the aura emitted from the blade, one could tell that this blade was extraordinary. Young Master Changhen, could this person be Qin Changhen, one of the 4 great young masters of the Qin Yuan Villa? Song Jiyu's eyes widened when she heard this. This person's identity hadn't been recorded in the slightest. She hadn't even received any information about him. She didn't expect the Saber Axe Pavilion to have hidden so deeply. Not only did they invite young Master Changhen, but they also obtained the Thunder Beheading Blade from an unknown place. In terms of forging skills, the smithy of the Qin Yuan Villa was definitely the best in the world. Obviously, this person was here to help the Saber Axe Pavilion obtain the first place. When Li Zongjio used the Raging Dragon capturing flames, he used almost all of his techniques. As a result, his opponent clearly knew the weaknesses and strengths of Li Zongjio's Raging Dragon capturing flames. It would be extremely difficult for Li Zongjio to use a targeted attack. Thunder Beheading Blade? When Li Zongjio saw the Thunder Beheading Blade, he recalled some things from his previous life. Although he couldn't remember the details clearly, he still had an impression of the Thunder Beheading Blade. After all, Li Zongjio had been chased by the Thunder Beheading Blade for half of the Xingyan dynasty. Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop? You little bastard, what's your relationship with the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop? Li Zongjio asked directly. His words were directed at the arrogant young master Changhen. Qin Changhen seemed to have not heard clearly what Li Zongjio had just called him. Little bastard? What did you say? Say it again. The 4 great young masters of the Qin Yuan Villa had long been known to the world. They could be regarded as the signboard of the Qin Yuan Villa. Li Zongjio was quite familiar with one of them. It was Meng Yu. Meng Yu was known as young Master Dan Yu, but now he was dead. Chapter 489. The person standing in front of him was also a young master called Young Master Changhen. In his territory, he enjoyed a very high reputation. Due to his powerful strength and ruthless style of doing things, he had gradually developed a reputation for himself. Young Master Changhen's favorite pastime was socializing with noble ladies. The colder and more difficult he was to deal with, the more he wanted to get close to them and conquer them. Most people had such a strange hobby, but they didn't have the opportunity to display it. Young Master Everlasting Hatred's most famous battle record was that he had once slept with the daughter of a first-grade city lord. After that, he cruelly abandoned her. The city lord was so angry that he wanted to punish young Master Everlasting Hatred. However, in the end, he actually lost his position as the city lord. What was even more shocking was that in less than a week after he left office, the entire family of the city lord was killed. The new city lord was appraised and determined to be the work of his enemies, so the case was left unsettled. Everyone knew that the mastermind behind the scenes was young Master Changhen. Perhaps it wasn't just young Master Changhen, because if he were alone, he wouldn't have been able to achieve such a degree. But even if he knew, what could he do? Even the powerful city lord of a first-class city was tripped up, and in the end, his entire family was destroyed. Such a ruthless person, standing here today, was actually pointed at by Li Zongjio and scolded as a little bastard in front of everyone. One could well imagine the consequences. Young Master Changhen would definitely use all sorts of methods to kill the person in front of him. Not only Li Zongjio, but also Li Zongjio's family. Little bastard, did I not make it clear enough? Li Zongjio said matter-of-factly. Are you courting death? Qin Changhen said coldly. His eyes flashed with a piercing light. When he looked at Li Zongjio, he already regarded Li Zongjio as a dead man. You want to kill me with your puny body? Since you don't want to tell me, I'll take you as a member of the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop. I don't like this thunder beheading saber. Just die for Lei Gong. Li Zongjio said calmly. When Qin Zhanghen heard Li Zongjio mention Lei Gong's name, he was shocked. The Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop was a weapon workshop built with the support of Qingyuan Mountain Villa. The weapons produced by this weapon workshop were not sold to the public. Only the insiders could use them. The owner of the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop was none other than the master of the Lei Gong Workshop. Among the organizations under Qingyuan Villa, there were a total of 4 workshops, and the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop was only one of them. Only a few people knew the relationship between them. It was not a big deal to know the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop, but it was not easy to know the name of Lei Gong. This was because Lei Gong was an existence who could sit in a meeting with the master of Qingyuan Villa. It seems that I have no reason not to kill you. You killed old man Long Fu of Qingyuan Villa and offended me. Now, you even dare to boast shamelessly and say that you want to assassinate the master of Lei Gong Workshop. Li Zongjio, not only will you die, but your whole family will follow you. Qin Zhanghen said coldly. The thunder beheading saber in his hand bloomed with surging lightning. In fact, this thunder beheading saber was not Qin Zhanghen's weapon. However, he had recently received a mission to infiltrate the Holy Flame Royal City. Since the operation had reached such a stage, he naturally wanted to make a name for himself. In fact, Qin Zhanghen had even used his connections to borrow the thunder beheading saber. In the current situation, the thunder beheading saber was the best weapon in the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop. It was enough to show how much Lei Gong valued Qin Zhanghen by lending it to him. The challenge of this round begins. Although it was no longer important, the people of the Merchant Union still had a discussion. Indeed, Qin Zhanghen's appearance was in accordance with the rules. In that case, there was no problem. After shouting this, they could fight however they wanted. The rules were to try their best to not overdo it. However, no one could say for sure what would happen in the arena. This is not good. The thunder chopping saber is indeed from the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop, which has been listed in the information. Although it is said to be a workshop in a small town, the workshop's attainments are quite high. Even all the weapons have never been leaked to the public. That's not good. The thunder beheading saber's attainments should be the work of the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop's owner. Song Jiu also frowned. Qin Zhanghen's strength and the power of the thunder beheading saber, not to mention that most of the functions of the raging saber had been displayed before. Basically, at this time, they could only rely on their experience and luck. What should we do, miss? Xiao Zhao was also a little worried. To her own surprise, she was now more worried about Li Zongjio's life than the outcome of the raging saber. Perhaps in terms of the performance just now, Li Zongjio's performance had already surpassed the value of the raging saber. Therefore, it was natural for her to be concerned about Li Zongjio. After all, his reputation had already been established. Everyone knew the power of this weapon. If it was used properly, it had actually defeated the magic weapons produced by 12 weapon shops at the Origin Weapon Conference. But now that Li Zongjio was facing Prince Changhen Qin, it was clear that he was in a life-or-death situation. It was a battle of life and death. In the arena, Li Zongjio was also surprised and a little happy when he heard his opponent's words. Oh, you're also from the Qingyuan Villa? That's too much of a coincidence. I have an extremely deep fate with the Qingyuan Villa. Li Zongjio was immediately happy. Now it seemed that the person who had hunted him down with the thunder beheading saber in his previous life was also from the Qingyuan Villa. Even if he died, he could not escape from the Qingyuan Villa. From the looks of it, it seemed that Li Zongjio's hatred of the world was related to the Qingyuan Villa. If one recalled the fate of the Dragon Axe Old Man earlier, it was sufficient to know just what the fate that Li Zongjio spoke of was. Just thinking about it already caused one to shudder despite not feeling cold. He raised the raging saber in his hand slightly. Without saying a word, he directly shot out a huge flaming net. Bang! This huge flaming net was special. It was extremely thin and could be compressed in the barrel. However, under normal circumstances, it could only store 2 at a time. Tisk, insignificant skill. Chapter 491. Qin Zhonghen sneered. How could he use the same technique that was used to deal with those idiots against him? That was simply wishful thinking. Since that was the case, he would let Qin Zhonghen experience the power of the thunder beheading blade. From the lightning/blade, a ray of light directly bloomed. Lightning flashed, and there was no need for any extra yuan energy to be used. The power of the lightning/blade was directly released. Boom! The lightning was so domineering that it spread out like a spider web in the sky, instantly shattering the giant web in front of Qin Zhonghen. When Song Jiyu and the others below the stage saw that the giant net was cut into pieces like tofu, they were all in disbelief. This web was made with special craftsmanship. How could it shatter so easily? The power of the thunder beheading blade is actually so domineering. Logically speaking, even a Yuan monarch powerhouse would find it very difficult to break free from this huge net. However, it had actually been reduced to a pile of fragments by the thunder beheading blade. To the current Song Jiyu, this was naturally shocking. At the same time, the rest of the people were also extremely shocked. This was because when Li Zongjiu had used this web, it had directly engulfed all 6 of them. This showed how powerful the thunder beheading blade was. It was not that Li Zongjiu had become weak, but that the power of the thunder beheading blade was simply too strong. Many of the people present were blacksmithing experts, so they could see the power of the thunder beheading blade at a glance. They were all amazed. The power of the thunder beheading blade is really impressive. Not bad. Based on the current power of this blade, even the 100 battle golden armor of our golden pavilion would only be able to withstand 3 moves at most. Someone exclaimed in amazement. At the same time, he did not forget to praise his own Yuanjia in this way. Qin Zhonghen was really thick-skinned. After this exclamation, similar sounds of disdain could be heard from the surroundings. They all felt that this person was truly shameless. However, the people of the Golden Pavilion were not ashamed. "Ha, your toy is just a pile of trash in my eyes," Qin Zhonghen said indifferently. Li Zongjiu, on the other hand, completely ignored him. After hearing this, the corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. The cannons fired more than 10 times in a row. Bang, bang, bang. These cannons were originally meant to take control of the enemy before pursuing them. The firebirds at the edge were also constantly flying out. Rumble. If some explosive maniacs were to see such a scene, they would definitely be extremely excited. However, at that very moment, Li Zongjiu's behavior was akin to a frightened sparrow unleashing that sort of attack. There was no strategy or routine at all. These terrifying flames shot towards Qin Zhonghen. However, Qin Zhonghen only smiled faintly. Such a method was really too low-level. What kind of person would make such an emperor-level mistake? He was a complete newbie. In a battle, the most important thing was to stay calm. Li Zongjiu was now completely in a state of panic. Killing him would be as easy as flipping one's hand. This guy, what is he trying to do? Song Jiyu could also see that Li Zongjiu was completely out of sorts. Could it be that he wanted to go all out and use this kind of crazy method to eliminate his opponent? How could that be possible? The thunder/blade moved once again. The roaring lightning instantly shattered the flames in front of him. The sea of flames turned into a sea of lightning. The sea of lightning crackled continuously. It was enough to see the terrifying power within. If someone were to accidentally fall into it, they would be burned to a crisp. Li Zongjiu's raging dragon/blade had no effect in front of the thunder/blade. It was easily blocked. In fact, it was an extremely strong suppression. Boom! Qin Zhonghen's sword slashed the chaotic energy in front of him and sent it flying. Jumping clown, what other tricks do you have? Just use them. Today, this young master will let you know the difference between us in front of so many people. Qin Zhonghen laughed out loud. It seemed like he had Li Zongjiu in the palm of his hand. It would be a piece of cake for him to kill Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjio finally made his move at this moment. He removed the energy of the raging dragon/blade. Li Zongjio took out an item from a secret compartment of the raging dragon/blade. It was a shiny blade. However, although the blade was abnormally tough, it was still very strong. If he wanted to kill the enemy or even fight against the thunder/blade, he would be overestimating himself. Such a short dagger could only be used as a last resort. Now that Li Zongjio had taken out such a trick, it was obvious that he was at his wit's end. Does this count as a cornered dog jumping over the wall? When they saw the little bayonet being mounted on the raging dragon's seizing fury, they felt that it was extremely hilarious. "I'll pierce your mouth later. I'd like to see if you can still laugh," Li Zongjio said indifferently. Song Jiyu seemed to have returned to her previous state. She was jealous and distrustful of Li Zongjio again. Looking at the crazy Li Zongjio in front of her, she couldn't believe that Li Zongjio was crazy. He wanted to use this small dagger to fight against the thunder/blade made by the Bright Thunder Workshop. Moreover, the thunder/blade was in the hands of Qin Zhonghen, one of the 4 princes of Qingyuan Manor. How could this be possible? Song Jiyu didn't know because Li Zongjio had already done a lot of things that were beyond common sense today. Even if he did one more thing, it wouldn't be a problem if a miracle happened. Don't expect a miracle. I'm the one who will destroy you completely, Qin Zhonghen said. Since Li Zongjio had no other means, the performance would end here. The two of them stepped forward almost at the same time and rushed towards each other. Li Zongjio's figure flashed and instantly appeared behind Qin Zhonghen. What? So fast? To be able to display such speed, he must have cheated. A ripple suddenly appeared in Li Zongjio's eyes. Thunder/blade. Qin Zhonghen, who was about to use a big move, suddenly stopped. At this moment, many people widened their eyes in disbelief. Many experts' gazes suddenly became sharp. Chapter 492. Oh no! Qin Zhonghen muttered in his heart. At this moment, he was unable to move because Li Zongjio had used his mental energy. Rules? Why would I talk about rules when I'm between life and death? I'm the great evil lord, Li Zongjio. Do you think I have to listen to your messy rules? I, Li Zongjio, can kill if I want to and keep if I want. Who can stop me? The moment Qin Zhonghen's body stopped moving, Li Zongjio had already circled behind Qin Zhonghen. The bayonet in his hand instantly pierced through the back of Qin Zhonghen's head and into the front of his throat. The sharp bayonet pierced through his mouth and fresh blood flowed out. Li Zongjio did not hesitate. With a light flick of his hand, a bloody hole appeared in Qin Zhonghen's neck. Even if Qin Zhonghen did not die, he was already severely injured. The blood that was spurting out continuously flowed into his throat. Until now, Qin Zhonghen was still unable to control his body. He was frozen on the spot, feeling the intense pain engulfing his mind and everything. Puff! With another light slash, Qin Zhonghen's neck was easily cut off. Half of Qin Zhonghen's head was hanging on his shoulder. Wow! Such a tragic way of killing Qin Zhonghen in front of everyone's eyes caused them to cry out in alarm. This scene was truly shocking. It was hard to believe that such a thing had actually happened. Brat, how dare you kill him? Seeing this, the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion immediately stood up and pointed at Li Zongjio as he cursed loudly. However, when Li Zongjio's gaze fell on the deputy pavilion master, the deputy pavilion master's heart palpitated. He was actually a little afraid in front of so many people. Under such a degree of fear, the deputy pavilion master did not speak for a while. He swallowed his saliva and looked at the people in charge of the Ironware Merchant Alliance not far away. Dear directors, all of you have seen it just now. This kid actually used his mental strength on purpose to break the rules and kill people on purpose. He has completely turned this Origin Weapon Conference into a place where he can unleash his killing intent and do whatever he wants. The deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion said loudly. Hearing this, Li Zongjio threw Qin Zhonghen's head to the ground. Then he put away the thunder beheading blade. Li Zongjio had a deep impression of this thunder/blade. He didn't have many enemies in his previous life, but this thunder-slash blade brought him unforgettable memories, so he had to keep it well. "How dare you take away the weapons of our saber and axe pavilion?" The deputy pavilion master immediately shouted. He seemed to want to blame Li Zongjio. At this moment, Song Jiyu also reacted. Li Zongjio must have secretly used his mental strength just now, so that he could kill Qin Changhen so easily. "Deputy Pavilion Master, your words are a little funny. With the standard of your saber and axe pavilion, it is already very good to be able to forge a piece of trash like the iron-blooded golden saber and axe pavilion. I believe that anyone with eyes can see that this thunder-beheading blade is not a weapon of your saber and axe pavilion at all. First, you broke the rules, then you slandered us. It seems that the saber and axe pavilion wants to dominate, despise the merchant alliance, and establish themselves as the king." Song Jiyu also spoke clearly, and every word was full of power. Since Li Zongjio had survived and killed his opponent directly, then the saber and axe pavilion master had been killed. Although Li Zongjio had gone overboard, after all, Li Zongjio was now a member of the 7-star fire room. Perhaps some people would choose to directly push Li Zongjio out. After all, this kind of thing would be very troublesome if they got involved. The involvement of Qingyuan Manor would inevitably complicate this matter. However, Song Jiyu was not a fool. She saw it clearly. On Li Zongjio's body, there was an endless amount of potential and treasures. They had to firmly grasp onto this thread on Li Zongjio's body. In the future, the 7-star fire room would definitely be able to reach a higher level. In fact, her confidence in Li Zongjio was based on Li Zongjio's perfect performance of the Fury Dragon Catcher. It was precisely because of this that he had won a favorable impression. In this case, perhaps there was a certain tacit understanding between her and Li Zongjio. Therefore, unlike other merchants, if the person she hired caused a big mess, she would probably have already washed her hands clean. However, this time, it was not approved. Therefore, Song Jiyu also stood up. She supported Li Zongjio. Although it was said that people with discerning eyes could see that Li Zongjio had used some kind of power in the end, only a few people could sense the fluctuation of this mind power. Moreover, there was no extra way to leave behind evidence of this mind power. Even if someone knew, it was difficult to find evidence because the time was too short. In addition, Li Zongjio's own mind power was extremely high. It was also very difficult to find something that could be used against Li Zongjio. Moreover, even if they really found something that could be used against Li Zongjio, there was no need to disclose this information because it was very likely that they would offend Li Zongjio and the 7-star fire room. Not only would they not gain any benefits, but they would also put themselves in a dangerous situation. It was commonly known as a thankless task. This was the situation that was commonly known. Even the several directors of the Ironware Merchant Alliance saw that there was something fishy going on. However, this was also a very special situation. For the time being, take the body away for examination. After the injury is verified, we will make a judgment. You all should stop arguing. As for the Yuan weapon exhibition that will be held later, it will still be carried out according to plan. After some discussion, the Ironware Merchant Alliance also made such a public announcement. When the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion heard this, he immediately disagreed. This was clearly an attempt to stall for time and directly deny this matter. How can this be? We will only be able to find out the truth by the end of the year. Song Jiyu, quickly return the thunder-slashing blade to me. Otherwise, you will only be inviting trouble for yourselves. The deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion was very unwilling. This was because the result of this treatment was completely to let Li Zongjio off. Such a thing should not happen. Li Zongjio must be severely punished. At the same time, when he mentioned the thunder-slashing blade, Li Zongjio's eyes also looked over. It seems that this deputy pavilion master also wants to forge a relationship with me. Li Zongjio's eyes revealed a trace of playful killing intent. When the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion saw this, he was momentarily speechless. The thunder-slashing blade was clearly in Li Zongjio's hands, but he did not dare to take a step forward. You will regret this. After the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion finished speaking, he turned around and left directly. At this moment, there was no point in continuing to stay there. After the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion left, the heads of the other shops also came forward to congratulate him. The 7-star flame room was able to forge such a powerful yuan weapon. They would definitely be able to make a lot of money in the following period of time. Of course, they had to congratulate him properly. Chapter 493. After Song Jiyu dealt with them for a while, she found an excuse to leave. Li Zongjio, accompanied by Xiao Zhao, waited for Song Jiyu in a camp. When Song Jiyu entered the tent, Li Zongjio also opened his eyes from his cultivation. Do you have enmity with Qingyuan Villa? Song Jiyu went straight to the point. Qingyuan Villa was of course powerful. To be able to become the #1 villa in the world, they naturally had unimaginable abilities. However, it didn't mean that everyone in the world would avoid Qingyuan Villa. The 7-star fire room was one of them. To be able to truly contend with Qingyuan Villa, the 7-star fire room might not be enough. However, since a long time ago, the competition between them had already existed. There was in the past, but there is no enmity now. However, I will destroy them. Li Zongjio thought for a while. If there was any enmity, it was really accumulated from his previous life. Now that he was reborn, in order to avoid the situation from his previous life, Li Zongjio had to completely remove this hidden danger. Destroy them? With just you, Li Zongjio? Song Jiyu looked at Li Zongjio in surprise. When she said this, she didn't say that she was looking down on Li Zongjio or ridiculing him. She was just surprised by Li Zongjio's way of thinking. It was as if someone in front of you said that he would sit on the dragon throne in the Xingyan dynasty's palace tomorrow and let the Emperor Xingyan kneel and lick his boots. That's enough. Li Zongjio said indifferently. This wasn't a secret. You are a person who can stir up a storm. My 7-star fire room wants to cooperate with you for a long time. Song Jiyu said directly. She looked at Li Zongjio and wanted to see something in Li Zongjio's eyes. Oh, the 7-star fire room wants to cooperate with me? If I remember correctly, the 7-star fire room isn't yours yet. Li Zongjio looked at Song Jiyu and said, So, what I want is for you to help me, and I to help you. Only now did Li Zongjio take a good look at Song Jiyu. She was young, but her courage and insight were not small. Moreover, her vision was not small either. It seemed that managing a shop in Royal City was a little overkill for Song Jiyu. Xiao Zhao stood at the side, seemingly unable to understand the conversation between the two of them. Help with what? With Mrs. Identity and Status, what else did she need Li Zongjio's help? Helping Miss earn money? Making money? And what did she want to give Li Zongjio? What did she want to help Li Zongjio? Could it be that she wanted to help Li Zongjio deal with Qingyuan Villa? Dealing with Qingyuan Villa for a single Li Zongjio was clearly a losing business. Qingyuan Villa was the biggest villa in the world. Those who stayed there were all famous masters in the Jianghu. Who knew how many geniuses had gathered there? The elite masters in the Jianghu would be proud to receive an invitation from Qingyuan Villa. Of course, Li Zongjio knew what the girl in front of him wanted. 7-star fire room. Take control. Previously, he didn't expect a girl like Song Jiyu to have such ambition. When Li Zongjio was reborn, he didn't just want to let it go so easily. Instead, he wanted to make the Li family the strongest family in the world. As for what would happen after that, as long as Li Zongjio was still alive, he would never allow the Li family to decline. However, in the process of growth, it was useless to be strong alone. One had to gather enough power and gather all the powers together. Just like how Li Zongjio was preparing to integrate all the casinos in the Sacred Flame Royal City. This was a place where money was rolling in. Anyone who was ruthless would want to get a share of the profits from the casinos. Li Zongjio was going to do it. He was the most ruthless one. Only then could he make a profit. As for Song Jiyu, since she was interested, Li Zongjio naturally welcomed her with open arms. However, the prerequisite was that Song Jiyu had enough power. Of course I can help you. If you want to cooperate with me, the prerequisite is that you have enough power. Li Zongjio said indifferently. I'm afraid that just the 2 lives today are enough to make you anxious. Li Zongjio said. No one will agree if Qingyuan Manor wants to interfere with the Yuan weapon business in the Sacred Flame Royal City. The Blade Axe Pavilion will definitely be defeated within 3 months. Even if Qingyuan Manor bribed half of the Ironware Merchant Union, it will still be useless. The real market will not be occupied by the Merchant Union. The ones who will control it are the big bosses like us. Song Jiyu said. If a woman was beautiful, she would be attractive enough. If she was smart, it would be even more surprising. However, it would also be scary because you would find out that you were also being schemed against. However, Li Zongjio liked to cooperate with such people. At the very least, everyone was very clear about what they wanted. Everyone took what they needed, cooperated with each other, and cooperated with smart people. That was the advantage of cooperating with smart people. Therefore, when Song Jiyu said this, Li Zongjio also agreed. Alright, I'll give you 2 months to destroy the Saber and Axe Pavilion. If you can do it, then come and talk to me about cooperation. Li Zongjio said faintly. Song Jiyu's eyes flashed. The Blade Axe Pavilion and the Sky Sword Pavilion were the old merchants in the Sacred Flame Royal City. Even the 7-star Fire Room was weaker than them. If it wasn't for Song Jiyu's smart strategy, it would be difficult to bring the 7-star Fire Room to such a height. Li Zongjio's request was to defeat the Blade Axe Pavilion in 2 months. When Xiao Zhao heard this, she was so shocked that her mouth was wide open. How could such a thing happen? The Saber and Axe Pavilion occupied almost 30% of the market share. This was because heavy weapons such as sabers and axes were very difficult to forge. In addition, many people were used to using such weapons. Furthermore, most of the guards used this type of weapon in their training. Therefore, every time the Blade Axe Pavilion produced a power-type weapon, it would be enthusiastically sought after in the market. The Sky Sword Pavilion mainly relied on nimble swords. Just like the Sky Destroyer sword this time, it was indestructible. However, it just so happened to run into the guy on the Raging Flames Dragon Catcher, which caused such intense damage. It was really shocking. Originally, it should have been able to shine, but it ran into Li Zongjio. The weapons made by the 7-star Fire Room were naturally of good craftsmanship, but it was already very good to be able to stand firm between these 2 old brands. It would undoubtedly be very difficult to swallow the Saber and Axe Pavilion. If one was not careful, one might even be killed by the Saber Axe Pavilion. Such a situation was extremely normal. Chapter 494. Therefore, in Xiao Zhao's opinion, Li Zongjio's request was complete nonsense. Who could possibly destroy the Saber Axe Pavilion? Did he think that this was a game? Even if it was, he wouldn't dare to think this way. Li Zongjio was clearly making things difficult for Song Jiyu. After Song Jiyu heard Li Zongjio's request, she was silent for a moment. She stared at Li Zongjio. Without a doubt, this was also a war. However, it was different from a real war. This was a commercial war. If Song Jiyu agreed, she would definitely become the leader of this war. If there were any problems, Song Jiyu would have to take responsibility. If she wasn't careful, she might be consigned to eternal damnation. The surroundings seemed to have become terrifyingly silent. Xiao Zhao didn't know what her young miss was thinking, but she could see that her young miss's gaze was gradually becoming dangerous. She wanted to say something to dissuade her young miss, but she couldn't say anything in the end. Alright, within 2 months, I will definitely make the Saber Axe Pavilion completely withdraw from Sacred Flame Royal City. Finally, Song Jiyu said aloud. This was something that could only be done with great determination. If she didn't take the risk and put all her eggs in one basket, it wouldn't be long before Song Jiyu would be dismissed and eventually take up the position of an executive elder in the family. It could be considered a success. However, she definitely had no right to ask about the matters of the 7-star Fire Room. This was because the 7-star Fire Room had gradually gained a foothold. Song Jiyu didn't need to worry about the following matters. Someone in the Song family would naturally take care of it. Even if Song Jiyu was the daughter of the Song family's head, the outcome would still be the same. Therefore, Song Jiyu had to seize the opportunity to completely stabilize her power and position. Otherwise, her many years of hard work would be wasted and she would gradually become someone else's dowry. How could Song Ji-yu bear this? This was the sorrow of living in a big family. Because Song Ji-yu was not a man. Even if Song Ji-yu's father was willing to let a woman be in charge, the others would not be willing. There would always be people who would not let go of this point. After meeting Lee Zongjio, he saw the potential in Lee Zongjio. Although Song Ji-yu didn't know much about Lee Zongjio, and even knew that Lee Zongjio was an extremely dangerous person, what Song Ji-yu was doing now was also a very dangerous thing, and it just so happened that they were a pair. Alright, then look for me when you succeed. Since we are partners, I will provide you with some help. If you encounter any trouble, you can go to my place to seek help. As long as it's below the primitive emperor realm, I can usually solve it. Lee Zongjio said. With Song Ji-yu's ability, it should not be difficult to find out where Lee Zongjio lived. In order to make it more convenient for Song Ji-yu, Lee Zongjio also left a note. Although Song Ji-yu was powerful and could use a lot of resources, if she wanted to do some personal things, it would not be so easy. Therefore, Lee Zongjio also chose to help her. Of course, he did not go all out, but at this critical moment, it was not a difficult thing to do. After that, Lee Zongjio left the Golden Mountain. Before Lee Zongjio left, Song Ji-yu could not help but remind him. That Saber Axe Pavilion and Blue Tiger Gang have some connections. This time, you ruined their good thing and snatched their Thunder Slayer blade. They will definitely do something to you. However, Lee Zongjio acted as if he did not hear it and left directly. If these people dared to come, Lee Zongjio would not care at all. Why would these gangs name themselves after animals? Were they trying to increase their murderous aura? On the Golden Mountain, the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion had an opium pipe in his mouth. When he heard Lee Zongjio leave the 7-star flame room, he immediately threw the opium pipe in his hand to the ground and stepped on it. Let's go. That damn brat actually dared to stare at me. I have been in the Sacred Flame Royal City for so many years. Does he really think that I have been in the Sacred Flame Royal City for nothing? After the competition, the deputy pavilion master felt that he had suffered a great humiliation. Furthermore, the Thunder Slayer blade was also snatched away by Lee Zongjio. If he did not take it back, how could he explain it to the people of Qingyuan Manor? However, the people of Qingyuan Manor were indeed a bunch of trash. Young Master Everlasting Hatred. Why did they have to trouble others to collect their corpses after they died? Why couldn't they collect their own corpses? Before this, the deputy pavilion master had already contacted the 4 protector kings of the Blue Tiger Gang. The Blue Tiger Gang used the weapons of the Saber Axe Pavilion, so they had close cooperation with each other. Therefore, there were many conflicts of interest between the two parties. Therefore, if there was any trouble that could not be solved, they would naturally inform the Blue Tiger Gang. The 4 guardian kings of the Blue Tiger Gang were equivalent to the 4 super fighters of the Blue Tiger Gang. They were extremely powerful. The Blue Tiger Gang's recent development was not bad. For some reason, the number 1 gang, the Azure Dragon Gang, was suddenly crippled. They took advantage of this opportunity to seize a large amount of territory. They grew stronger in an instant. The original Azure Dragon Gang could not even take care of themselves now. They were engaged in fierce internal strife. Other than the few main territories that they were guarding, the rest of their territories were basically lost or snatched away. The person who had always been in second place jumped up in an instant. Therefore, the Blue Tiger Gang had been very arrogant recently. Their strength was also extremely strong. Now that the income of the 4 Guardian Kings had skyrocketed, they did not care about anyone else. When they received the summons of the Deputy Pavilion Master of the Saber and Axe Pavilion, they led their men to the foot of the Golden Mountain to stop people. As the 4 Guardian Kings of the Blue Tiger Gang, they could be said to be second only to one person. The Blue Tiger Gang now had more than 8,000 members, and these were only the official members. If some non-official members were included, the number would be enormous. Guardian King Shanning, we saw people coming down from the mountain. On the official road, 4 carriages were placed horizontally in the middle of the road. If anyone wanted to pass through, they would have to move the carriages aside. Of course, this was only the meaning. Li Zongjio came to the front of the carriages and stopped in his tracks. Immediately, someone jumped into the carriage and waved the long saber in his hand. He threw a torch, which instantly ignited the pile of firewood on the road. Boom! The flames immediately lit up the surrounding area. I opened this road. If you want to pass through, pay the toll. Kid, hand over the thing in your hand and get lost. Chapter 495. Except for the group of people who jumped onto the carriage. In addition, the sound of swords clashing could be heard all around. The surrounding people were also clamoring. They actually dared to rob people on the official road. One had to admit that these people were getting bolder and bolder. They were the 4 guardian kings of the Blue Tiger Gang. Mountain Eagle, Black Bear, Leopard and Poison Arrow. Shanning was also wearing a dazzling long robe. With a light sway, he appeared in front of everyone like a peerless expert. Then, Black Bear and the other 2 also rushed out. Each of them brought their own men and surrounded Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio also looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. The people who were still performing were also shocked. What exactly were these people doing? Could it be that the gangs nowadays were actually a bunch of idiots? Li Zongjio was too lazy to talk nonsense with these people. Without another word, he directly pulled out the thunder beheading blade in his hand. Boom! When the thunder beheading blade shone with light, the people from the Saber Axe Pavilion who were rushing down from the mountain in the distance were also shocked. It seemed that Li Zongjio had already encountered the other party. Otherwise, there would be no need to use the thunder beheading blade. They finally found a chance to snatch the thunder beheading blade back. Immediately, the dozen or so people quickly rushed down. However, when they rushed to the intersection, they found that the surroundings were charred black. The originally green trees were now filled with the smell of black charcoal. There were also 4 carriages that were burning with flames, and crackling noises could be heard from the carriages. The corpses lying on the ground were also glowing corpses. When the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion saw this scene, his eyes widened. Not good. They even dared to kill the 4 guardian kings of the Blue Tiger Gang. Seeing this, the vice pavilion master's heart was filled with shock. Even if they were not enough to defeat Li Zongjio, they would not have ended up like this. They were completely annihilated. Coupled with the tragic situation around them, these people from the Saber and Axe Pavilion began to worry. It seemed that they had encountered a terrifying person. It's good that he's dead. If he's dead, the Blue Tiger Gang will definitely hold Li Zongjio accountable. Now, I want to see what you can do. If the Blue Tiger Gang wants to kill you, it will be a piece of cake. The deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion was extremely pleased with himself. With such a series of schemes, they would definitely not lose out. After all, their Saber Axe Pavilion was a business. If they personally handled these vendettas, they would dirty their hands. Therefore, it was better to let these people do it. If these people couldn't deal with the other party, then this enmity wouldn't just be between the Blade Axe Pavilion and Li Zongjio. It would also be a matter between the Blue Tiger Gang and Li Zongjio. As long as this happened, such a situation would naturally occur. It would escalate to a point where there was no need to push it. However, the Vice Pavilion Master did not expect Li Zongjio to be such a ruthless person. He did not even spare a single one of them. All 4 Guardian Kings had been killed. Even the Vice Pavilion Master did not dare to believe such a thing. The Blue Tiger Gang was now at the peak of its power. Now, Li Zongjio was probably finished. Oh, you thought it through. Not long after the Vice Pavilion Master finished speaking, he heard a cold voice. When the Vice Pavilion Master heard this, a ray of light flashed across his eyes. When he turned around, he saw 2 figures appear in the darkness. With the weak light around them, he could vaguely see that it was a woman. As for the other person, it was just an old man. The Vice Pavilion Master of the Saber and Axe Pavilion looked over. Who's playing tricks here? The 2 figures walked out and appeared in front of everyone. The Vice Pavilion Master of the Saber and Axe Pavilion was surprised to see them. He had not expected this person to appear in front of him. So it's you, Song Jae-yu. The vice pavilion master of the saber and axe pavilion said meaningfully, "Do you think that you can let your 7-star fire room take advantage of the situation by finding a random brat to defeat me? A woman will always be a woman. No matter how hard you work, everything you create will be snatched away by your brothers in the future. Why do you want to pave the way for someone else? If you're willing, come to the saber and axe pavilion. You can ask for whatever reward you want." Song Jiyu smiled when she heard the vice pavilion master's words. He was indeed an experienced person. She did not expect him to not forget to fight for benefits at such a time. In the eyes of these people, even a dead person's skin could be easily plucked off. "All right, then give me your head." Song Jiyu smiled and said. The vice pavilion master of the saber and axe pavilion's smile gradually disappeared. This Song Jiyu dared to threaten him. "I think that you're courting death. Today, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your father." However, before the vice pavilion master of the saber and axe pavilion could give the order, he saw the person behind Song Jiyu and rushed out. Boom! When the old man's appearance appeared in the light, the vice pavilion master of the saber and axe pavilion was stunned. This was because he did not know the person in front of him and had never seen him before. The terrifying roar of a beast came from the side. Then, a swift and fierce figure was seen. It was rushing over, and in the blink of an eye, it was in front of the people of the saber and axe pavilion. "Wolf! There's a wolf!" Crack! The figure of the howling moon wolf king immediately appeared. Its huge paws were equipped with sharp claws, and it immediately grabbed the dozen people before it. Bang! 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 Some people were directly sent flying, and their bodies smashed into the big trees with a boom. Even those who didn't die were severely injured. "What are you trying to do?" the vice pavilion master roared. His subordinates immediately stood in front of him, trying to stop the old man in front of them. But all of a sudden, the old man in front of him disappeared without a trace. He disappeared. Where did he go? "Protect the vice pavilion master." The guard in front of him shouted loudly. Suddenly, he felt a gust of wind blowing towards him. Swoosh! The guards immediately felt some kind of liquid splashing up from their necks, and they immediately felt a chill. They wanted to see what it was. When they turned their heads, they saw their vice pavilion master's head fly off. While they were still in shock, they immediately saw a cold light sweeping toward them. That sharp blade light directly pierced towards his neck. Swoosh! The cold wind whistled and swept over. The figures of several people suddenly stopped where they were, and their heads all flew backwards. At this moment, the howling moon wolf king bit the last person in half. It was extremely bloody and cruel. This beast's behavior was completely different from what Song Jiyu had seen before. She had thought that the howling moon wolf king was just a small wolf dog. Who knew that it would be so cruel? A Yuan king level Yuan beast. It was hiding in Li Zhongjio's residence. What was going on with the old man in front of her? His movements were so fast and his assassination techniques were so proficient. The dozen or so people present were all taken down in just a few moments. Chapter 496. Inghu shook his clothes. The howling moon wolf king changed back to its original form. Its body, which was almost 10 meters long, gradually shrank back to its original form that Song Jiyu saw at the beginning. Young master said that we can only help you 3 times. This is the first time. Inghu walked in front of Song Jiyu and said calmly. He walked into the darkness without looking back. When the howling moon wolf king passed by Song Jiyu, it raised its head and howled softly. Song Jiyu only reacted when the man and the wolf disappeared into the darkness. How much help did Li Zhongjio prepare for her? With this combination of man and wolf, it would not be a problem for them to kill their way to the headquarters of the Saber Axe Pavilion. Most importantly, this man seemed to be born to deal with such matters. He acted without any hesitation. Song Jiyu was even worried that this old man would not be able to complete his task. When Li Zhongjio gave her the note, Song Jiyu had already arrived at White Deer Alley. She found the old man and showed him the note. She also explained the purpose of her visit. The old man did not say anything. He immediately brought his little wolf dog here. When they saw the lightning flash, they happened to be nearby and immediately rushed over. They arrived just in time to kill the deputy pavilion master. The way to deal a heavy blow to the enemy was naturally to act in such a way. Killing the deputy pavilion master was also beneficial to Li Zongjio. He only needed to create a disturbance in the market and it would be easy to cover up the news of the thunder-slaying sword. And the most important thing was, the deputy pavilion master of the Saber Axe Pavilion died at the place where the Blue Tiger Gang and the others were intercepting him. This was the most exciting part. Since such a situation had occurred, no matter which side it would be impossible for them to bow down. Unless the two forces were as strong as steel. If they could do this, there would be no estrangement. When the 4 guardian kings of the Blue Tiger Gang were all dead. Now that the vice pavilion master had been beheaded, the pavilion master had been beheaded. Normally, people would focus on their own losses. As for your losses, you'll have to make up for my losses first. Losing such an important role in the Blue Tiger Gang, the Saber Axe Pavilion's influence would be greatly reduced. Only in this way would Song Jiyu have a chance. My chance is here. Since I've started, I can't stop now. Song Jiyu said to herself. Song Jiyu couldn't stay here for long, so she quickly left. In the process of returning to the top of the Golden Mountain, there were also people who could prove that Song Jiyu did not leave the top of the Golden Mountain. It was impossible to suspect that Song Jiyu was the culprit. After Song Jiyu left, Li Zongjio was also watching this scene from afar. This woman is really ruthless. Li Zongjio could not help but ask. Without the slightest hesitation, she directly executed the dozen people in front of her. Originally, Li Zongjio wanted to kill these people himself. However, since Song Jiyu was the one who did it, he wanted to see her performance. Based on her current performance, it was very good. As for the Boyu Casino, Li Zongjio did not ask too much about Taifai and the others. They were just some underground forces and wouldn't involve any sections. Li Zongjio was well aware that these gold and purple yuan coins were nothing but a joke in the eyes of the real behemoths. What was the use of these things? When that day came, the real thing to fight for was the primordial stones. High-grade primordial stones. Only primordial stones could allow a faction to truly flourish and prosper. Things like casinos and gambling stalls were nothing in their eyes. The Yi clan's strength, compared to the level of Li Zongjio and Evil Lord in his previous life, was just an ant. Obviously, as long as they did not touch on the business of primordial stones, there was basically no problem. If the Yi clan wanted to kill them, they could kill them. Even if the Sima clan wanted to kill them, they could also kill them. For a clan that could be replaced at any time, even if they had a firm grip on power, what could they do? If they wanted to kill them, it would still be a simple matter. However, there were some things that could not be touched. They absolutely could not be touched now. Otherwise, they would fall into a situation where there was no hope of reprieve. Even now, Li Zongjio had killed so many people in the Qingyuan manor, but until now no powerful figure had come to deal with Li Zongjio. That was because these people were unimportant people in the Qingyuan manor. As long as it did not involve those people, there would generally be no problem. For now, Li Zongjio's strength was enough to deal with the Qingyuan manor. However, it was far from enough to completely destroy it. Now, Li Zongjio was also accumulating primordial stones. Now, he was just killing one person he saw. In the future, Li Zongjio would definitely find one person and kill one person. He would not be lenient. Li Zongjio's figure also disappeared. The Fury Dragon capturing was sent back. After all, it had been used before. Later, the 7 Stars Fire Room would also send a new Fury Dragon capturing to replenish the energy stones. Because this was the content of the contract. It had to be given to Li Zongjio. Even in the future generations, Li Zongjio would be the first to have it. In this primordial weapon conference, the Fury Dragon capturing was undoubtedly a hot item. Almost everyone was relishing in talking about the battle results. Of course, the most exciting battle was naturally the one where Luo Yunyang fought against the 12 experts. The strong controllability of the Fury Dragon capturing was naturally inseparable from Li Zongjio's control. However, if someone could do it, they could do it too. Many parties were paying attention to the developments of the Primordial Weapon Conference. Now that the king of primordial weapons had appeared, the 7 Stars Fire Room had immediately received hundreds of orders. According to the previous price, the price of owning such a powerful weapon was actually about the same. It was even a little cheap. This was because the price of the Sky Destroyer sword was directly set at 67 million purple yuan. On the other hand, the Fury Dragon Capturing was set at 55 million purple yuan. Since they were all Yuan King-level primordial weapons, the value of the weapons would naturally increase. Even the Southwest Sword Sect had personally made an appearance to place an order for the Fury Dragon Capturing. The craftsmen of the 7 Stars Fire Room immediately entered an extremely busy state. Chapter 497. After returning to the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor, Li Zongjio did not go anywhere else. He went straight to the front of the Genius Tower. Because of his own strength, Li Zongjio was able to comprehend the various levels of alchemy again. He continued to progress step by step, which brought great enlightenment to Li Zongjio. Even some things that he couldn't understand in the past could be easily understood at this moment. Therefore, it was a very good experience for Li Zongjio to go through the Genius Tower again. At the very least, he could gain a lot from it. In front of the Genius Tower, when Li Zongjio appeared, he realized. The light on the 11th floor of the Genius Tower was already lit up. Li Zongjio immediately stopped and looked at the scene in front of him. It was not only Li Zongjio. At this moment, it was already late at night, but there were still many people watching below the Genius Tower. Among them was Li Zongjio's class teacher, Ling Yan. There was also Teacher Kong, who was beaten up badly by Li Zongjio. The 11th floor, the 11th floor. Oh my god, why is this guy working so hard? It's too scary. Even Senior Guisi, who is ranked 3rd on the Alchemy Master ranking, only broke through the 8th floor some time ago. In just a few days, someone actually rushed to the 11th floor directly. So strong. This Li Zongjio is really fucking powerful. Someone could not help but say. Obviously, he was extremely envious and amazed by Li Zongjio's strength. There are experts in the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor that I have not seen before? Li Zongjio was also surprised when he saw this scene. Even if Qi Dan came, she might not be able to reach here. Because in here, the older one was, the greater the pressure they would face. The younger one was, the more care they would receive, and it would be easier to pass the level. No, this person's goal, could it be that the Universe 9 revolving needle is also here? A cold light flashed in Li Zongjio's eyes. Although Li Zongjio did not know who this person was, he could vaguely sense that this person's goal seemed to be the Universe 9 revolving needles on level 14. This was because in the previous floors, as a reward for clearing the level, there would be some notes. As for how these notes were formed, Li Zongjio didn't know, although he had some vague guesses in his heart. However, Li Zongjio wouldn't jump to conclusions before he saw it clearly. This person probably did not have a sense of crisis before, because there were very few people who could match up to him. It was only when Li Zongjio appeared that this person became nervous. That was why he was attacking the building recklessly. From the 14th floor onwards, mysterious formations would appear every 3 floors. Comparatively speaking, the Universe 9 revolving needles was a set of very simple things in the Genius Pavilion. It was relatively low level. There was also a higher level of acupuncture. It would take time to comprehend it. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had been interested in the needle technique, but he had spent most of his time on alchemy and breaking through to Absolute Saint Realm. Thus, he had only spent some time on cultivating the needle technique. He completely relied on his powerful talent to learn it. Li Zongjio, why are you here? Aren't you upstairs? A surprised voice came from beside him. When Ling Yan saw Li Zongjio in front of him, he almost bit his tongue. He was so surprised. Wasn't this guy going upstairs just now? Why was he here? Didn't that mean that the person who was going through the level wasn't Li Zongjio? Li Zongjio. I knew it. How could a thievish-looking person like you, who deceived his master and destroyed his ancestors, possibly enter the Genius Tower? Only those with a kind heart and virtuous character can enter the Genius Tower. A scum like you, Li Zongjio, can't possibly enter the Genius Tower. When Kongjue saw Li Zongjio, who was full of hatred, appear in front of him, he directly pushed the people in front of him away and pointed at Li Zongjio's nose and cursed. It had been almost a month. Finally, he found an opportunity to directly drag out this stinking shameless Li Zongjio. Now that you can't hide your foxtail anymore, I Kongjue, Master Kong, will teach you a good lesson today. I'll teach you a lesson. Otherwise, it would be difficult to eliminate the hatred in his heart. Not only that, he must punish Li Zongjio severely and let everyone know how powerful he is. Li Zongjio originally wanted to talk with Ling Yan and ask about the recent situation of Mist Mountain. But suddenly, this short wintermelon rushed out and shouted. Then this short wintermelon actually gathered everyone around him, and then started gesturing in front of Li Zongjio. Their words were sharp and incisive. Look, this is the person who beat up a teacher some time ago. His nature is extremely bad and his character is extremely low. Such a person is immoral and no one can learn from him. You must learn from him and treat it as a shame. He's a complete scum. Teacher Kong, be careful. Just when he was happily scolding Kongjue, someone suddenly exclaimed. Then, Kongjue was startled. In the next second he felt a gust of wind. Bang! Li Zongjio directly kicked Kongjue and sent him flying. Kongjue fell heavily on the ground. Just this alone was enough to break his butt. Li Zongjio directly waved his hand. His mental strength immediately wrapped around a stone beside him and shot it like a sharp arrow towards Kongjue's head. Shio! Kongjue opened his eyes wide. He couldn't even see clearly what Li Zongjio was doing. But inexplicably, he directly felt that his whole body was tense, as if his whole body was being crushed by the momentum. His hair instantly stood up. Li Zongjio, don't. Suddenly, Ling Yan shouted loudly. Li Zongjio's move seemed to be too slow for many people to react. Boom! The stone released by Li Zongjio steadily hovered in front of Kongjue's forehead. At this moment, Kongjue finally saw clearly what Li Zongjio was doing. If Ling Yan had been a little later, this rock would have directly smashed his head into pieces, exploding like a tofu flower. Kongjue never thought that death would be so close to him. If it had been just a little bit more, he would have been finished. The stone hovered for a moment, then with a plop, it fell between Kongjue's legs. After seeing it, Kongjue also felt a chill in his lower body. Then there was a fishy smell. Chapter 498. Teacher Kongjue actually, he was so scared that he wet his pants. Kongjue himself didn't feel it, but when he was about to get up, he looked down and saw that his legs were already wet. Kongjue pointed at Li Zongjio with a trembling finger. Finally, under everyone's gaze, he didn't manage to catch his breath and directly fainted on the ground. How can you do this? If you kill Teacher Kongjue, you will get into big trouble. Ling Yan suddenly said in a flustered and exasperated manner. How could there be such an arrogant student in this world? This Li Zongjio didn't dare to do anything, but when he made a move, he didn't show any mercy. I didn't intend to kill him. I just wanted to use this matter to teach these ignorant young people a lesson. Without strength, all they have is a glib tongue. That's the end result. Li Zongjio pointed at Kongjue, who was humiliated to the point that he couldn't bear the burden and directly fainted. Previously, Kongjue was scolding with vigor, but this time, he also directly fell to the ground, lying on the ground like a dead dog. Li Zongjio, who was scolded, stood in the same place as if nothing had happened. Such a scene made it easy for people to judge who was superior and who was inferior. They could immediately tell who was more reasonable. What was right? As long as one could live a better and happier life, that would be the real right. You child. When Ling Yan heard Li Zongjio's words, he was naturally a little angry. This kind of thinking was simply twisted logic, but even though it was twisted logic, it sounded a little ridiculous. However, Ling Yan also deeply knew that this sentence was true. But the premise was that you must have a very powerful strength. I will continue to enter the Genius Tower. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, He did not have any intention of staying and directly entered the Genius Tower. Those guards on duty didn't know whether they should arrest Li Zongjio because no one gave the order. Moreover, they were only on duty. As long as there was no trouble in the Genius Tower and there was no problem in the Genius Tower, they generally didn't need to take action. Therefore, although Kong Zhuo was beaten up, they didn't receive orders from their superiors and couldn't take action. Even if they took action, it would be useless. Anyway, this guy was in the Genius Tower and couldn't run anywhere. One must know that the Genius Tower didn't have windows. You brat, you left the mess to me again. Ling Yan simply put his hands on his waist in anger. If using fists could make Li Zongjio obedient, Ling Yan would definitely take action without hesitation. However, it was impossible for Ling Yan to chase after Li Zongjio. Instead, he casually pointed at two tall men. You too, carry teacher Kong Zhuo to the medical hall. Ah? Why us? The two people who were chosen immediately had looks of grievance and unwillingness on their faces. Gotcha. Ling Yan casually moved his fingers as a dangerous glint flashed across his eyes. Upon witnessing this scene, the two tall men had no other choice but to lower their heads and step forward, submitting to the might of Ling Yan's aura. Kong Zhuo, who was covered in a foul stench, was carried away. Don't look here, all of you are dismissed. Don't you have classes tomorrow? Also, the words of that brat just now, if anyone dares to take it seriously, I will cripple him. All of you go back and study hard, otherwise, I will make you all fail. Ling Yan suddenly said. When they heard the word, fail, everyone fled in panic. How would they dare to continue staying here? Otherwise, if they failed, the consequences could be said to be extremely serious. Ever since he got these two students, Ling Yan had almost delayed his own cultivation. He couldn't wait to cripple these two people. This matter wasn't easy to deal with if he wanted to. Ling Yan was also helpless. What else could he do? Who asked him to be her teacher? Li Zongjio entered the Genius Tower. Since the 11th floor had already opened, there was no need to continue staying here. Therefore, Li Zongjio directly went to the 10th floor. Once he entered the deduction state, his perception of the outside world would be very low. Li Zongjio didn't see anyone on the 11th floor. He must have used some method to hide himself. After sitting down cross-legged, he entered the deduction state again. In the heavenly star medicine manner, everyone's gaze was on the Genius Tower. Other than that, everything else was going on as usual. As long as Li Zongjio didn't make a move, the heavenly star medicine manner would be relatively peaceful. In 5 days, the academies that were eliminated would have the opportunity to enter the second round again. Most of them wanted to give it a try, but there were also some who chose to give up because they knew their own capabilities. If they wanted to enter, it would be impossible unless the invigilator's eyes were blinded. If that was the case, there was still some possibility. However, Yao Lei was considered to have prepared well. Originally, she wanted to go to Li Zongjio's house to express her gratitude to Li Zongjio. However, she was told that Li Zongjio wasn't at home. Thus, Yao Lei left dejectedly. She could only wait until she entered the heavenly star medicine manor. In the sacred flame royal city, it was also peaceful. Everyone was still living and working in peace. However, in the Imperial Martial Pavilion, there was a huge uproar. In the Imperial Martial Pavilion, there were different small groups. Moreover, each group had a different name. The Imperial Martial Pavilion's method was to let these students compete with each other in groups. Currently, the strongest group in the Imperial Martial Pavilion was the Blazing Sword Alliance. When a core member of the Blazing Sword Alliance was sent back today, his face was filled with grief and indignation. He had never imagined that such a thing would actually happen to him. Therefore, when he returned, he immediately went to find the Blazing Sword Alliance. He immediately went to find the Blazing Sword Union's Union Master and told him all the grievances he had suffered outside today. What? You are saying that you were sneak attacked by someone from the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor? The leader of the Blazing Sword Alliance, Lung Ao Feng. When he heard his subordinate say such words, he initially felt that it was inconceivable. However, after that he was incomparably furious. This person didn't place him, Lung Ao Feng, in his eyes at all. So what if it was the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor? Since this person dared to sneak attack a student of the Imperial Martial Pavilion, he must take him down. Moreover, the person who had attacked was one of Lung Ao Feng's men. If he didn't take revenge, how would he be able to recruit new people in the future? Chapter 499. Now, all the members of the Blazing Sword Alliance were gathered together. Jean Buffon originally wanted to take revenge himself, but after thinking about it, he realized that the other party was a disciple of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. If he acted rashly, the Martial Palace might even blame him for it out of respect for the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. That was why he found Lung Ao Feng. The Blazing Sword Alliance's Lung Ao Feng was naturally nothing. Jean Buffon would surpass him sooner or later. But the most important thing was that there was someone supporting the Blazing Sword Alliance. In fact, the entire upper echelon of the Blazing Sword Union had joined in the future in order to serve this person. That was why Jean Buffon had made such a move. He wanted to borrow the power of this society to fight against this person. That damned Li Zongjio actually ran away after beating him up. Moreover, he hid in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. No matter how powerful Jean Buffon was, he couldn't just barge into the other party's school and capture them. So what if it's the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor? Is our Martial Palace weaker than them? In the process of discussion, the upper echelons of the Blazing Sword Alliance expressed their opinions. Those who were able to sit here all had their own abilities. They wouldn't be put down so easily. Their words carried a lot of weight. That's not the case. No matter what, we must take back our face. Otherwise, the other associations will definitely make a big fuss about it. Someone said, "It's not easy to get into the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor to capture someone. If they were at the Imperial Martial Pavilion as well, it would be much more convenient. They could just bring people up and drag them out to give them a good beating. Or they could ambush them on the path that they had to pass by. No matter how many people there were, they would rush out together. Taking action was the most direct way. But now that it was the people of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, they would probably be suppressed by the other party the moment they rushed in. Or perhaps, they wouldn't even be able to enter the door. This was a very normal thing. If young master is willing to step in, it shouldn't be difficult to get the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor to hand over the person. The deputy chief of the Blazing Sword Alliance, Wan Zhong, said, "Usually, the ability of the Vice Alliance leader was higher than that of the Alliance leader. After all, the Vice Alliance leader had to go through the Vice Alliance leader first, and the position of Alliance leader was just a symbol. Of course, the Vice Alliance leader's ability had to be convincing." When they heard the deputy chief's words, everyone felt that this was the main point. "Isn't it a little inappropriate to disturb young master over such a matter?" Lung Ao Tian said with a frown. After all, this young master was not some idle person. If he directly went to disturb the young master because of some trivial matter, he might even be punished. Don't worry, young master cares about the Blazing Sword Alliance. Moreover, I'm only here to hand the person over. If there's any problem, I'll settle it myself. It's not like I'm here to eat you," Wan Zhong said. "If young master is willing to step in, then our Blazing Sword Alliance's reputation will definitely spread throughout the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. At that time, we might even have admirers in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor." Hearing Wan Zhong's words, Lung Ao Feng seemed to have thought of something. His eyes lit up. This was indeed a very good way. A very good way. That makes sense. Not only do we have to dominate the Imperial Martial Pavilion, but if we can increase our reputation in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, wouldn't that increase our prestige? Lung Ao Feng said. "I'll immediately report this matter to young master." After Lung Ao Feng left, the meeting naturally ended. However, Wan Zhong found Jean Buffon and asked him about the specific situation that day. He had to explain every single detail. At the same time, he also noted down Li Zongjio's name and asked someone to prepare a document about Li Zongjio. "You're saying that you didn't see his skills clearly?" Wan Zhong asked with a frown. Everyone was a martial artist. Most of the time, if they relied on their eyes for everything, they would have died long ago. Most of the time, it was necessary to cultivate one's intuition. This was the most powerful method. Martial artists more or less had some intuition. In the face of danger and some sinister moves, they would be able to sense it. You're already a 7th grade origin ancestor, but you still couldn't sense his fist. Even with your physical strength, you couldn't block his fist. This person's strength is definitely not simple. Wan Zhong said. Among the alchemists, there was no lack of experts. Even in the Heavenly Star Medicine manner, there were many fighting geniuses. However, having a strong Yuan Qi cultivation did not mean that one's combat strength would be strong. This was the motto of the Imperial Martial Pavilion. Even when facing an enemy who was stronger than you, as long as you could make a calm judgment and think of countermeasures, you would definitely have a chance of survival. As for whether this chance of survival was useful, no one said it. This was because those who didn't were already dead. However, you don't have to worry. I've already sent people to investigate this person's background. No matter how talented he is, as long as he touches someone from our camp, he will either surrender or die. Wan Zhong said. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Thank you, Big Brother Wan Zhong. Jean Buffon cupped his hands and said. Wan Zhong also smiled, patted Jean Buffon's shoulder and said, Go. After Jean Buffon left, Wan Zhong's eyes regained their cold, killing intent. It's not easy to be a spy. If this Li Zongjio has some ability, it might become a tug-of-war between the Blazing Sword Alliance and Young Master. I have to quickly tell Young Master to get in touch with this Li Zongjio in advance. Wan Zhong saw a very unique opportunity in this matter, which was Li Zongjio's identity. A disciple of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. No matter what, although the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was full of alchemy experts, in terms of martial strength, the Imperial Martial Pavilion was nothing in their eyes. However, these alchemy geniuses needed to be well protected. What Wan Zhong needed to do now was to intensify the conflict between Li Zongjio and the Blazing Sword Alliance. A good show is about to start. At this moment, both Jean Buffon and Ling Outyin did not know that they were gradually walking into a trap set by Wan Zhong. Chapter 500. The second day. Someone came to the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor from Chao Wu Pavilion. They were looking for Li Zongjio. As a result, in this reception room, Ling Yan and a group of people in front of him who looked like adults, but were actually a group of little brats, sat together. Why are you looking for Li Zongjio? Ling Yan furrowed his brows as he looked at the people from the Imperial Martial Pavilion in front of him. The two institutions had been friends for many years. Even if there was a problem, it would be solved between the institutions. Since when did these students come to find trouble? Wasn't this just a joke? If it wasn't for the pressure from the higher-ups, Ling Yan wouldn't be sitting here. He heard that the background behind these people wasn't simple. Someone had greeted the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, so it was impossible to let this matter go. Hello, Teacher Ling Yan. I'm Chao Wu Pavilion's Blazing Sword Union's Vice President, Wan Zhong. My member told me yesterday that he had some conflicts with Li Zongjio. That's why I'm here. I want to confront Li Zongjio face to face. Let's clear things up so it can be solved easily. Don't you think so? Lung Ao Tian didn't say anything. The one who spoke was Wan Zhong. In these situations, Wan Zhong seemed to be able to handle it with ease. You guys really have nothing better to do. Who's your instructor? I'll look for him directly. Behind the establishment of every society, there would be an instructor. If something happened, the instructor would be responsible. However, most of the people who knew about the instructor were just in name. There wasn't much substance in it. We can handle this matter ourselves. There's no need for an instructor to come. If Instructor Ling Yan can understand, please make an exception. He hit our people. If it's not enough, an apology is necessary. As long as Li Zongjio can apologize and admit his mistake, our Blazing Sword Union won't pursue this matter. Wan Zhong said indifferently. As for Ling Yan, he rolled his eyes. You guys really think of yourselves as a tree. At best, you're just a cabbage. I think your assessment task is too easy. You guys have caused so much trouble. I'll talk to the Dean of Chao Wu Pavilion later. Blazing Sword Alliance, right? I'll remember that. If I see any of you in the vicinity of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, I will throw all of you out. Ling Yan's temper was like a volcano, exploding at the slightest provocation. You actually want the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's students to apologize to you? What a joke. He had long said that these messy society systems should be abolished. Now, they were all raised to be gang leaders and thought that they were very powerful. They even dared to negotiate with their teachers. In the eyes of these grade 5 alchemists of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, these people of Martial Tide Pavilion were just some crude martial artists. Just casually refining a pill was enough to make these people bleed. They did not put these people of Martial Tide Pavilion in their eyes at all. Ling Yan directly slammed the door and left, leaving the members of the Blazing Sword Union sitting there in a daze. This was very different from what they had expected. How could it be like this? It was really unexpected. They never thought that these people would be so protective of Li Zongjio. Moreover, their attitude was so unyielding. Most importantly, they did not put the Blazing Sword Union in their eyes at all. If they were in Martial Tide Pavilion, the name of the Blazing Sword Union would be very useful. One of the 3 major societies. No one dared to provoke them. After all, Martial Tide Pavilion was a place where victory and defeat were decided with their fists. However, outside the boundaries of the Imperial Martial Pavilion, any association or the like would be useless. Furthermore, everyone's strength was about the same, so they naturally wouldn't bother with you. This was why their Blazing Sword Union was so unwelcome. For a moment, they found it hard to accept. However, they quickly woke up. What did this bitch say? Immediately, someone said angrily. They almost did not react in time. This woman slammed the door and left. When had they ever been treated like this? If the Blazing Sword Union went to other academies, they would be provided with good food and drinks. There would even be some beautiful female students who would accompany them the entire time. However, when they came to Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, they actually met with Ling Yan's cold face. It was really hard for them to accept. However, they could not do anything about it. Could it be that they had to rush out and capture Ling Yan and beat him up? Looks like Heavenly Star Medicine Manor has decided to protect Li Zongjio. This matter, we can only let young master step forward. Lung Ao Tian said in a deep voice. Obviously, their face was not big enough. That was why he was rejected so harshly. If that was the case, he could only bring out someone even more powerful. Don't worry, Union Chief. Young master is just the beginning. Since they don't put Teacher Minghui in their eyes, let's inform Teacher Minghui. Wan Zhong said indifferently. Teacher Minghui was the instructor of their Blazing Sword Union. Looking at Ling Yan's expression, it seemed that even if Teacher Minghui was brought out, these people would not put him in their eyes. If they did not put him in their eyes, it would be just right to intensify the conflict. In this way, the Blazing Sword Union and Heavenly Star Medicine Manor would definitely be in a difficult situation. If they wanted to settle this matter, they would have to spend a lot of effort and pay a price. When Lung Ao Tian heard this, he first glanced at Wan Zhong and frowned. There's no need to report to young master. Of course, young master has already stepped forward. If young master appears one after another, what's the use of our Blazing Sword Union? Aside from this open confrontation, we must also take action in the dark. Send people to monitor the various exits of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. If Li Zongjio is found, take him down immediately. In addition, Li Zongjio is a student of Heavenly STEM Department's A class. There's another person in his class. This person definitely knows the whereabouts of Li Zongjio. Take him down as well. I don't believe that he won't appear. Wan Zhong said. People who were born in the Imperial Martial Pavilion did not have so many rules to speak of. Everything depended on the size of one's fist. Whoever had the bigger fist would do the right thing. If one could not defeat the other party, then it was naturally a different matter. After being arrogant for so long, they were naturally used to such a style. In fact, in the eyes of these people from the Blazing Sword Union, there was no problem at all. Very well, we'll do as you say. Li Zongjio will definitely not get away with it. Lung Ao Tian slammed the table and left the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor with the people behind him. Before the battle had even begun, they had already suffered a defeat at the hands of Ling Yen. If it was someone else, then the name Blazing Sword Union might have some use. Chapter 501. Li Zongjio didn't know that because of his actions, a storm was brewing in the Imperial Martial Pavilion. Moreover, it was directed at the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Although it might not have any effect in the end, it would still affect Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio only knew that he was in the process. He was also trying his best to catch up with the other party. However, the Genius Pavilion shouldn't be anxious. They must fight steadily and surely. Li Zongjio naturally believed it. Although the other party had concealed his strength, it was almost impossible for him to catch up with them at this speed except for the first few stages. Therefore, Li Zongjio wasn't in a hurry. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Li Zongjio took another step forward. He stepped into the 12th level. Li Zongjio's physical strength and mental energy had been greatly consumed on the 12th level. There were still 2 more levels to go, so he immediately retreated from them. This was like an enhanced version of intensive training. If he kept rushing forward, it was very likely that he would bring about overwhelming damage to himself. He must have a balance between tension and relaxation to be able to adjust his body's condition well. At the same time, Li Zongjio also needed to come out and see how much the outside world had changed in the past half a month. Most importantly, he also needed to check on the progress of the matters that he had instructed. Li Zongjio walked out of the Genius Pavilion. At this moment he actually felt like he could see the sun again. The person who was originally in charge of the Genius Pavilion's key had been replaced. He found a mentor to replace him. This kind of job was originally an idle one, and there was no skill involved. Therefore, it was Kongzhu's turn. However, Kongzhu had lost a lot of face. Recently, he was too embarrassed to appear in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. If he was seen by others and brought up again, wouldn't it be extremely embarrassing? As for Li Zongjio's behavior, although Kongzhu condemned it, Li Zongjio was too arrogant. Almost no one in the entire Heavenly Star Medicine Manor could subdue him. Therefore, Li Zongjio walked out of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor very smoothly. He came to the Great Pleasure Casino. Recently, the Great Pleasure Casino could be said to be at its peak. Tai-Fi was expanding without restraint. Although his strength wasn't enough, he had money and a backer. This backer could solve many problems secretly. As long as someone blocked his way, he only needed to hand Li Zongjio's house a slip of paper and it would be easily settled. Therefore, Tai-Fi's path of annexation was exceptionally smooth. From the beginning until now, it had been nearly 2 months. Now, several Gold Star Medicine Manor. And this was because Tai Feihe couldn't make the decision on these matters. In addition, the only official information left by Li Zongjio was the manor on White Deer Avenue. Therefore, Tai-Fi directly helped Li Zongjio to give him a name and become the head of the manor. White Deer Manor. Currently, 60% of the casinos in the city had been annexed by the Great Pleasure Casino. Together with the Golden Casino, these 2 giants took the lead and directly took the majority of the stones. Currently, in the Yuntong Bank, the White Deer Manor's account had an additional 46 billion purple yuan. And this number was still increasing. This was the initial income. The majority of the money would have to be distributed later. Currently, the wealth of the White Deer Manor was increasing by 5 billion every day. This was a part of accumulating wealth in the early stages. Once the situation stabilized, or if they were to fight a bigger war, this number would be depleted very quickly. With such a large number, coupled with the recent achievements, even Tai-Fi himself couldn't believe that he had such an achievement. If Li Zongjio hadn't forced him, he really wouldn't have believed it. However, most of the matters were solved by the people of the White Deer Manor. Tai-Fi was also very clear about this. If the problem of the Azure Dragon Gang had not been solved at the beginning, Tai-Fi wouldn't have had a chance today. Now that the Azure Dragon Gang's power was gone, they could only protect some of their remaining businesses. In addition, there was still the Crocodile Gang and the Blue Tiger Gang behind them. The Azure Dragon Gang's influence was not as great as before. The Crocodile Gang and the Blue Tiger Gang had a certain foundation before. However, this strength didn't spread throughout the city. Now, in the city, these people could be considered to have a say. For example, the Great Delight Casino was one of the top establishments in the entire Sacred Flame Royal City. The remaining parts are basically in the hands of these two gangs, and there seems to be someone helping them behind the scenes. We can't fight them for the time being. Tai-Fi told Li Zongjio about the recent situation. Blue Tiger Gang? Crocodile Gang? Li Zongjio knocked on the table. Who supported them after they were defeated? Hearing Li Zongjio's question, Tai-Fi was secretly surprised. However, he knew about Li Zongjio's ability. He said in a deep voice, "Based on the information we have collected so far, it is very likely that the princes in the Imperial City are manipulating the situation behind the scenes." Tai-Fi said, "The princes manipulating the situation?" It was almost time to appoint the crown prince. If these princes wanted to truly stand out and not be eliminated by others, then they must have their own forces. Only then could they survive this wave of turmoil. If they wanted to fight for the position of the crown prince, they would need a lot of money. Where the money would come from would depend on their own means. Therefore, it was very normal for the princes to be involved in this. Even some of the influential clans and business clans in the city had to find their own backing. Only by standing on the right side would they be able to achieve meteoric success and advance further in the future. If they failed, then what awaited them would be eternal damnation. Therefore, in the early days, there were very few people who could choose a team. Also, there is one more thing. What is it? Li Zongjio asked. The Empress of 9 Victories wants to work with us. She has another gold-level casino under her control. What's there to cooperate with? Just swallow it up. Li Zongjio said. Could it be that he was afraid of this? Behind the Empress of 9 Victories is the Pan family. Recently, we found out that the Pan family seems to have close ties with the 9th prince. In this underground, almost all kinds of information were flying around. Therefore, to be able to gather so much information was a testament to Tai-Fi's strength. The 9th prince? If he wants to take my territory, even if he is a leak, he won't stand a chance, let alone the 9th prince. Let's go immediately. Today, I will personally take action. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.